Three of us, fish chips, peas, I think one of us carry sauce, 3 cans of pop, just short of 70 quid.
£70? That's 23 quid a head, man. Even my maths does that. Very quickly, a voice note. Campbell in Scotland, go.
Up here in Banff in the northeast of Scotland, we can get a fillet and a half of haddock with a regular chips for £8 and 10 pence, and it's by far and away one of the best chippies I've ever had.
Kenneth in Surrey, fish and chips, go.
Fish and chips in Ascot, about half a mile from where you used to live, will cost you £12 and 60 pence. Great show. Keep up the good work.
That's why I moved, because you were living there. When was the last time you had fish and chips?
Couple of weeks ago.
How much? Where'd you get it from?
I think it was about 40 quid, because it was in the Ivy.
Honestly, you really are. For any of you who think he's a man of the people, I nearly said you're a...
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning and welcome to Morning Glory. It's Friday. We've reached the end of yet another incredible week, has to be said. It's Friday the 8th of August and we are here for your delectation until 10 o'clock, of course. Charlie Rowley's here with me as well. We're going to be running through the stories on the front pages of the papers. It has to be said, quite remarkably, Starmer, the leader of this country, Sir Keir Starmer, as some people like to call him, the Prime Minister, has lost yet another minister. This time it's the homelessness minister, a woman called Rushanara Ali, who until yesterday I'd never heard of her. But she apparently decided that she had a big house in London that she wanted to rent out to some tenants. She didn't think they were paying enough money, so she kicked them out, evicted them, made them homeless, you might say, and then decided to actually put the house back on the market, on the rental market, and raised another £700 a month. Believe it or not, this is a woman who works for the Labour Party and is supposedly a socialist, but has a house that's renting right now, currently in London, for £4,000 a month. She's been accused of staggering hypocrisy, because not only is she a homeowner and a landlord, she has also gone against what is Labour policy, which is that you can't, within a certain period of time, shut down your deal with the current tenants and ramp up the price of the rent. So I'm afraid she has now resigned. She's the MP for Bethnal Green and Stepney, rented out a 4-bedroom house near the Olympic Park in East London for £3,300 a month. In November, she gave 4 tenants 4 months' notice to leave and relisted the property with an increase of 700 quid. I mean, what's wrong with these people? You know, talk about greed, talk about champagne socialists, talk about a Labour government in complete and utter decline. This is yet another... I mean, how many other ministers have quit? We'll be talking about that. Also, lots and lots of other stories to talk about as well, including, of course, the state of the migrant hotels. The front page of The Sun, Asylum Seasiders, prime beach hotels housing migrants. 3, not 1, not 2, but 3 huge hotels near one of Britain's favourite beaches are being used as accommodation for asylum seekers during the peak summer season. And this, of course, is in Bournemouth, down in Dorset, where thousands and thousands of pounds are being spent on an hourly basis. Migrants are put up for free 200 metres from the seafront, right? And it has to be asked, the question has to be asked. Isn't it funny how there's been a bit of an increase and a bit of a surge in sex crimes in Bournemouth since this has been the case? Yesterday, the Home Office made its first detentions of small boat arrivals under the controversial one-in, one-out scheme, but they refused to tell us how many people they detained. They refused to tell us where they detained them. We'll be showing you some video evidence which doesn't really prove anything, where it shows people being processed as they arrive into Dover, which is pretty much what they used to do. So they won't tell us how many people they've stopped. They won't tell us when they're sending them back. They won't tell us whether or not the people who are going to replace them are coming in anytime soon. The whole thing is an utter bloody shambles, quite frankly. Also, we'll be talking about the new MasterChef, the show that went out on the BBC this week with John Turode and Greg Wallace. Apparently it's bombed, and they've lost about 1 million listeners overnight. Also, there was a plot to kill Prince Andrew, and believe it or not, it wasn't by the royal family. 0344 499 1000 is the number. 6 minutes past 6. This is Morning Glory. Let's get it on. Oh, yeah, by the way, there's another good story about the trains. Apparently, it turns out that train staff want more money because they have to scan tickets. Isn't that part of the job? Sorry, your tickets, please. Can I have a pay rise? What else do they do? The bloke that walks up and down the train, he asks to scan your ticket. They want more money for scanning the ticket. Dear me. Anyway, Charlie, very good morning to you.
Good morning.
How are
Thanks
you?
Very much. Very well. How are you?
Yeah, I'm very well indeed. I mean, I guess we have to start with the Minister for Hypocrisy, as they call it on the front page of the Daily Mail. You know, they seem, I mean, if I'm not trying to be unkind to this Labour government, they seem a bit accident-prone when it comes to appointing ministers, doesn't it?
To put it lightly.
I mean, they haven't had somebody quitting for a few months, so I suppose, you know, they're a due one. But this woman, Rushanora Ali, absolutely staggering, isn't it? A woman who not only is so rich that she's got a spare house to rent out for £4,000. I mean, a house that rents for £4,000 a month, it must be some house.
Well, and in a prime location, obviously, near the Olympic Park.
Yeah.
You know, one where students will want to be near universities. It's a campus site. So, you know, of course, she's creaming it in. And what she's done in her letter of resignation, as she says, she hasn't done anything illegal. But it would be.
That's all right then.
But it would be
but
in
it
a few
will
months'
be,
time.
Yeah, once the Labour government passed the new bill, which prevents people from hiking the rent just by kicking people out and going, oh, I think I'll just charge a bit more. Exactly.
And she's a minister in the Department for Housing, no less. So she's carrying part of this legislation through. And this is why there's been such a pushback. But there is a pattern emerging, Mike, as you've said.
There is.
There was a
all the way back to Louise Haigh.
Louise Haigh, exactly.
The convicted fraudster.
Convicted fraudster. So she was sort of sent on her bike in a transportation fashion. There was, I think it was Andrew Gwynn, that was a health minister, that was suggesting that there should be some elderly, hopefully that they die.
Before kill off some pensioners, that would be good.
From the Department of Health. Then there was the corruption minister.
Ah, yes.
Yes.
She didn't quite understand the brief, did she? Because Tulip Siddiq thought that when they called her corruption minister, she had to be involved in some corruption in Bangladesh.
Committed.
She's now facing a trial, I think, in Bangladesh, even though she keeps saying it's a vendetta that they've got against her. Well, not really. You know, they're doing a genuine sort of investigation into corruption, and her auntie, who used to run Bangladesh, was apparently a ghastly woman who used to just rip the place apart as long as she made some money out of it.
Yeah, exactly. And now I
don't think I have to worry about any legalities there, because she has in fact been charged with that. Thank you very much indeed.
But you're absolutely right. And now we've got a homelessness, or did have a homelessness now.
Hopelessness minister. Jobless.
Who's now jobless.
Let's not forget, you've glossed over Jonathan Reynolds. You know, you had to apologise. Had to apologise in the House of Commons for pretending to be a solicitor for 10 years. Right? Apparently, we misunderstood what he said when he claimed that he was a solicitor. You know, he didn't mean to say that, but he kept saying it. And he kept saying it for years and years and years, and then he had to apologise. And then, of course, we've got Rachel Reeves, who faked her own CV, right, and has now somehow become the Chancellor of the Exchequer, possibly the worst one ever, with not much knowledge of economics, even though she claims to be an economist.
And that's the trajectory I hope that the Director of Travel might be seeing. You know, we're seeing people in jobs of their departments where they're going against what the department stands for. So, you know, health and killing off pensioners, homelessness, getting rid of making people homeless. We've now got a Chancellor, hopefully, that because she's tanking the economy, or doing pretty a good job of it. She could be, and I think will be, I'm afraid that, well, not afraid, only for her sake, the next to go.
Yeah, I think so. She can't possibly survive because, I mean, the Bank of England yesterday lowered their interest rates again. A lot of economists said actually that was the wrong thing to do. And a lot of people, even within the Bank of England, said it was the wrong thing to do because inflation's going up. And if you do lower the interest rates as inflation is going up, it creates more problems for the economy. and that, you know, the business confidence is so low. Nobody wants to spend any money. Nobody wants to hire anybody. You know, joblessness has gone up. I think there's, what, 250,000 fewer jobs now in the market than there were. But the thing that I love about these resigning ministers is that, here's what she said, Rushanara Ali. She basically said, all relevant legal requirements have been followed. I take my responsibilities and duties seriously. Really? What's the point of even saying that?
Exactly, yes. And no apology in her resignation.
She's ripping the arse out of these students, or whoever it was that was living there, kicked them out. Who knows if they have found another place to live, and ramped up the price of the rent. It's just ridiculous, isn't it?
Well, it's blatant profiteering, and you know, as she said, you know, she hasn't committed any crime. She hasn't acted outside of the law, but so you know, landlords are doing this. But the whole point of the Renters Reform Bill is to make sure that actually renters are protected. And there's always been a debate, and you've got to balance it finely. You don't want to put too much onus on landlords because otherwise there won't be any landlords. They'll say, no, thank you very much. It's all too bureaucratic and it's too complicated.
We just won't bother.
And we won't bother because if we do have troublesome tenants, it's making it difficult to evict them.
Yes.
But when you do have good tenants that are, you know, want to pay a fixed rate, they don't want to keep seeing their rents increase every year unnecessarily by scrupulous landlords. That's what the whole balance is about. But she has gone against every moral fibre and compass that's ingrained in the legislation to kick them out, hike up the price, expect new people to come in. It's ridiculous.
It is. The Mail says it very, very clearly that now ex-ministers' actions would be illegal under long-awaited legislation to improve renters' rights in its final stages after passing through the House of Lords last month, right? And they found somebody called Laura Jackson, who's a 33-year-old self-employed restaurant owner, one of those who rented the house, roughly about a mile from the Olympic Park, in March 2024 at £3,300 a month. I mean, that's extortionate money as well. She claimed she received an email in November telling her the lease would not be renewed this year and that she and her housemates would need to move out, giving them 4 months' notice to March. That's it. That will be illegal under the new Labour government rules, right? Current occupants reportedly moved in 4 to 5 months ago on the increased terms. It is believed Ms. Ali owns at least one other property in the area. Well, that's nice, isn't it? Super. Yes. Do you think she got it from Talib Sadiq?
Yeah, they must be.
She's owned. I mean, she owns a few houses in London, which apparently she doesn't know she owns. Remember when she said, "Well, I was living in this property, but I wasn't sure that I owned it." Yes. I didn't know. I mean, I've never lived in a property that I wasn't sure about whether I owned it or not. I've lived in a few properties I've owned, and I've known that I've owned them. Yes. And it hasn't been any surprise to me that I've owned them.
And there was another.
Because I've bought them. Yes. And I've got a mortgage and everything, and every month I have to pay a mortgage. And the idea that these bloody ministers go, oh, I didn't know I owned it. Yes. I wasn't sure.
Exactly. And do you remember there was another Labour backbench male MP that had terrible standards in mould and all kinds of things.
Yes.
Where there was but he said, I wasn't aware of it because it was through a tenant management agency.
Yeah, that was some guy in Birmingham, wasn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. He brought in some management agency. But the idea that they hadn't passed on to the owner, this backbench MP, is ridiculous.
Incredible.
So, you know, lots of Labour MPs saying one thing and they'll come out and say, you know, well, we must protect these people, we must protect renters, we must protect the homeless, we must do X, Y, Z, and it all requires a lot of money. But when it actually comes, you know, we've got to scrap private schools because
landlords are evil.
Landlords are evil. Private schools are evil when they send their kids to private schools and when they make people homeless because they're landlords themselves. They say one thing and do a complete other.
It is unbelievable, isn't it? Rachel Reeves talking about falling interest rates. Is this an old one or is this a new one? Let's have a look.
I welcome the fact that interest rates have come down today. That's good news for homeowners, good news for businesses. And interest rates have now come down 5 times since Labour came to office, in part because of the stability that we've managed to return to the economy after the chopping and changing, the mini budget under the Conservatives and Liz Truss. And what that means, that 5th cut in interest rates, is that if you're taking out a mortgage for £215,000, you're going to be paying on a variable rate around £140 less a month than when we came to office just over a year ago. So this is good news for people wanting to get on the housing ladder, people remortgaging, and also businesses borrowing to grow.
Do you think she's wearing that hat just in case anybody tries to kill her? You know, like drop something on her head.
Walters,
she's going to walk around wearing a hard hat everywhere she goes.
Walter
James in Wendover says, put that banana skin on your desk in the bin, Mike. Good morning. Listen, I ate this banana just before I started. I'm sorry if you saw it, and this is actually symbolic of the Labour government. So I'm going to keep it on the desk because they keep slipping on it. Is it bloody banana skin? There you go. And this from Mark in Selby. Morning, Mike. Rishana Ali is the one and only member of the Labour cabinet who has done what it says on the tin. She was the homelessness minister who made people homeless. Rachel, Yvette, Jess and Keir should take note. Let's have a look, actually, because this is the big story of the day, of course, from late yesterday, was that they announced just before the end of my show yesterday, we have now, for the first time, detained some migrants who have come to this country illegally on small boats. Let's have a look at the video that Keir Starmer put out. To the country on a small boat, you will face detention and return. I meant it. I meant it. He's so hard, isn't he? He's a really macho man. If you enter the country, surely he should have said if you enter the country illegally, not if you enter the country on a small boat. Because what if you enter the country illegally in a lorry?
Yes.
Does that mean you're not going to be stopped? Yes. And so basically what they've done here is they've shown people walking off a boat with border force into a building where they are kind of, basically, annotated, investigated, looked at, spoken to, which is exactly what they used to do. It's no different from what they used to do. And here they are, sort of, there's no, what I want to see is, a prison door slamming and all of these people behind it, behind bars. But that's not what they're showing.
No, but it's also just not the reality of the situation, because you're not going to be deported. You know, under this one in, one out, as you said, it's
you might as well call it, panorama. It's not. It's not one in, one out. It doesn't mean anything.
No, exactly. And they won't be deported. That's the thing. They will be, as they arrive. Anybody that arrives into this country, whether it's through small boat or if you're caught in a lorry, which still happens less so now because this route is so accessible. You will be put into a hotel still today. You will be processed. It will take weeks for your process to take part and then to take place. Then you will be, maybe, if you're one of the very unlucky ones that gets deported.
1 out of 17.
1 out, exactly. But
so as we're watching those people walking off the boat and going into this building, maybe one of them might be sent back.
Yeah.
And then he'll be replaced by somebody else.
By someone else that supposedly has ties or links to the UK. And what does that mean?
I mean, who are these people sitting in France going, I've got ties to the UK, and waiting for us to give them a sort of tap on the head and go, all right, you can come in and we'll give you asylum status and you'll be here for the rest of the time. Have you got any relatives? Yeah, I've got 150 of them, actually. All right, great, bring them all with you.
Yes, exactly. It could be a brother, it could be a father, it could be a cousin twice removed, that's already got into the country on a small boat.
I've got a cousin twice removed from Afghanistan.
But the reason why we keep hearing that the backlog, there's a backlog, that's got to be processed. But
75,000 is a backlog.
75,000. But they're
going to send 4 people back.
Exactly. But you keep hearing that the amount of approvals, I think the approval rate is about 80% or 60%.
It is. It's the highest in Europe.
But that's because it's so easy to say yes, approval. It is more difficult to say no, because under our system you've got to justify why you're rejecting someone.
We can say no, but then they appeal and then they stick in the hotel for another year.
Exactly.
Right? Exactly. While they get their high-priced lawyers paid for by us to argue their case, and quite often they then get to stay. It's unbelievable. The Sun have got a great one this morning on page 1, Asylum Seasiders. Basically 3 hotels in Bournemouth, which is a lovely part of the world, are being occupied currently by asylum seekers, and then the spread on pages 4 and 5, great headline, wish you weren't here. Which is brilliant. So they've got the Roundhouse, central location, hotel near the town centre, migrants gathered outside it, you can see pictures of them. Then they've got the Britannia, which is a similar part of the same chain as the one in Canary Wharf. Some of the bikes are racked up outside the hotel, you can see that. They're obviously Deliveroo drivers or whatever it is. And it's just incredible, and another one called The Shine, which is also not that far from the beach. It's within walking distance, actually, of the beach. And it has to be said, and I don't apologise for making the comparison, that ever since, I would say, 2 years ago, there have been a large increase in the numbers of sex attacks, rapes, sexual assaults in Bournemouth. Some young teenage girls getting assaulted in the sea, by migrants. You can't get away from it.
No, exactly. And that's why when we're seeing these protests, peaceful protests, people acting well within the law who turn up to these hotels, and you're seeing women and their daughters and real community folk coming together.
And we're going to see loads more of them this weekend, by the way.
Exactly, exactly. And in Bournemouth, you know, there's a couple here, a retired great-grandmother, Susan Beecham, aptly named near the beach, and her daughter, forked out £1,400, £1,400 to stay for a week in a Bournemouth hotel, to be by the seaside. It's the summer holidays. You want to spend that time with your...
It's a lovely beach.
Lovely beach. You want to spend that time with your loved ones. All the while next door, they've got illegal immigrants, migrants have come to the country, that are getting that hotel accommodation for free. And that just smacks to the injustice and the unfairness that UK taxpayers are having to pay thousands of pounds to have a nice holiday, to spend that time with their family. All the while, they've got people next door, they're getting it for free, and all the while not being able, or not feeling able, to go outside and walk down that beachfront after dark or whatever, because they feel because of the crime.
There was a 15-year-old girl, I think, assaulted last year actually in the sea. You know, as she was out, you know, sort of swimming around in the shallows, and some character came up and basically raped her in the sea. I mean, it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Let's listen to what Yvette Cooper had to say yesterday on this new pilot scheme with France.
Pilot has now begun, and the first migrants who arrived on small boat are now in detention. That is the first step to removing them to France, because no one should be making this journey in the first place, and that's why this is now starting the process to return people and to undermine this vile trade in people.
You won't say how many have been detained, though. There could be just 2 people detained yesterday. Don't the public have a right to know?
Well, we will provide regular updates for the public at every stage. That's why I'm confirming today that the pilot has now started, and the first migrants who arrived on small boat are now in detention. The transfers to immigration removal centres are underway as we speak, so we won't provide operational details at this point that criminal gangs can simply use and exploit.
How would a criminal gang use and exploit information about how many people have been detained? Surely, if you want to put the criminal gangs off, you would say, we've basically detained all of them. Yes. Everyone who's come in is now locked up, and we'll be putting them on a plane and sending them back tomorrow. Yep. That would presumably be a good message to the vile criminal gangs that she keeps referring to. By not telling us how many she's actually detained, surely they're going to go, well, this is a load of old cobblers. We'll just keep sending some more people.
Well, exactly. The only way that it plays into the hands of the criminal gangs if the number is 2.
Yeah, right.
You know, 1 or 2 people.
Why
so
won't
if the number is so low.
We will provide updates. Well, provide an update then.
Yes, yeah. What are you doing
How many
here?
people are there? You stupid woman. What's wrong with you? Yes. You know, it's unbelievable, isn't it? Here's what she said earlier in the week about the numbers. Check this out.
We're not setting out what the numbers will be at this point for 2 reasons. First of all, because those numbers will vary and will increase, and we haven't fixed an overall number for the scheme. We obviously want it to increase as much as possible. But also, secondly, because we're not going to provide operational information about which numbers, which days that the criminal gangs will then simply use in order to continue to ply their vile trade in human beings.
Yes, it is a vile trade in human beings, obviously. One of the things, of course, that the vile trade in human beings merchants are going to love is that every time they send somebody back, they'll just send them back over. Yes. And they'll be charged double. Yes. So, well, how much did you pay last time? £2,500. Right, this time it's £3,500. You want to have another go? Yeah, okay then. Yes. So they basically doubled their money.
Yep. And all the while, let's be totally upfront about it. This is only 50% of the deal here. Yeah. Because the other deal, or the other side of the bar, is with France. And the idea that all of a sudden we send one back to, or 2, or however many, up to 50, it was reported maybe a
and
week.
then we get another 50.
We get another 50. Right. France are not going to all of a sudden now change their tune and say, oh, well, we'll welcome these 50 people back from it, and here, take another 50 people back your end. You know, that's the reason why there's a limit. That's why the Home Secretary is terrified of revealing any kind of numbers, because they are going to be low.
Because if they say, for example, there's 10 people we're going to send back to France, and then the French go, actually, we don't want 8 of them. Yep. So we're actually now sending 2. Yep. That's why they can't say, right?
Exactly. Exactly.
But just be honest with the people. And people are sick to death of the bloody lying Labour government who just tell lies every single minute that they open their mouths. This is Keir Starmer's video from earlier this week on the so-called pilot scheme.
For the very first time, migrants arriving via small boat will be detained and returned to France in short order. In exchange for every return, a different individual will be allowed to come here via a safe route, controlled and legal, subject to strict security checks and only open to those who have not tried to enter the UK illegally. This will show others trying to make the same journey that it will be in vain and that jobs they've been promised in the UK will no longer exist because of the nationwide crackdown we're delivering on illegal working, which is on a completely unprecedented scale.
It's all rubbish. None of that's happening, right? And who are these people they're going to find who have never tried to enter Britain before? They're just wandering about the streets of Boulogne, you know, sort of boulevardiers going, you know, comment allez-vous? Would you like to have some mussels with me? Would you like to come to England? I've never thought about it before. Yeah, why don't you come over here? Because we've got this guy who's some bloke from Afghanistan. We're going to give you the right to take his place in England. It's complete nonsense.
Yes. And because...
I'm going to say it again. I said it earlier in the week, and I apologise for anybody listening. 6:26. I know that the children at home, it's bollocks. Simply speaking, that's what it is.
Well, I think that would be the sentiment that most people up and down the country feel. You're absolutely right, because there's no way of knowing who these people are. So you come over in a small boat illegally. If you are one of those who end up getting sent back to France, you've turned up to this country without any identification. Right. You've not been able to tell the UK who you are. That's why you've been able to stay for so long, because they're trying to get to the bottom of your case. If you can't turn up with any ID or tell us what country you're from, what conflicts you're fleeing, what case you've got to be in the UK, then you should be deported within 24 hours. You know, there's no point being here.
Yeah, but it should be like a rubber ball, right? You land, you bounce, and you get sent back. That's it, the end.
Exactly.
Right?
But so it does allow you to, I'm afraid, sorry, Prime Minister, newsflash, you know, you will be able to legitimately turn up again at France, make that crossing again, because the UK government and the UK Border Security and Services will have no idea whether you've tried to make that crossing before.
Here's the great sort of piece of information about all of it, is that the French are under no obligation to tell us who the people are that are coming in the first place. No. They're under no obligation to tell us in the second place if the ones who come to replace the ones we send back. They're under no obligation to tell us whether they've got a criminal record or whether in fact they are dangerous terrorists. We have no ability to actually judge who these people are anyway.
No.
Which is pathetic.
And isn't it a coincidence that ever since President Macron's state visit, where there was that sort of one attempt to sort of, which they did, they slashed the dinghy that was sort of about to take off.
One dinghy
just before the state visit. Not seen anything since, have we? Nothing like that.
Yesterday, on day one of the sort of the new regime, if you like, the gendarmerie were just standing on the beach watching everything and just waving people away, going, au revoir, à bientôt, I'll see you when you get back.
And how many UK politicians does it take that go out to that now doing all these videos? Chris Philp, I think the Shadow Home Secretary, was the last one to be on a vessel watching the French authorities escort
Nigel Farage.
Exactly. Nigel's done it, Chris Philp's done it. I'm sure Robert Jenrick will be out there.
He will be. Jenrick's really upset that he didn't think of doing it before Chris Philp did. Anyway, listen, we're running terribly late. We haven't even taken a break yet, and it's almost 6:30. We're here, of course, until 10 o'clock. It is Friday, and so not only are we looking ahead to Plank of the Week, but we will be... Oh, there's the migrant tracker, 48,833. I guarantee you that will be 50,000 by about Tuesday, right? No question at all. Here's Julia Hartley-Brewer with a gaffe, OK? And if you are listening with your children, I apologise in advance because this is a little bit graphic, is all I can say.
Would you ever want your own daughter, would you encourage your own daughter to do what you do?
And you're going to think I'm sort of telling lies, but if they genuinely wanted to do this...
Genuinely wanted completely strange men in balaclavas to strangle them?
Yeah, I would honestly support them. I'd have to explain all the risks, all the dangers, but the world's a dangerous place regardless now. You could be walking down the street and you might as well have security.
Well, no, I don't think as a general, I've managed to go my whole way through life without anyone strangling me or being gangbanged. I mean,
it depends what type of sex you like.
I'm sorry. That's a relief anyway. It's 6:29, this is Talk.
Now, the Green Party and the Labour Party will try to make this nothing, will try to make this disappear, but people will not allow that to happen now because they've got the data. It used to be that if you said, oh, well, these particular kinds of people are doing, we all knew it was happening, but if you said that before the data was in, then you were, oh, you're a racist or you're far right. No, that stuff doesn't matter anymore because we know, the people know.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 6:32. I'm Mike Graham with you all the way through until 10 o'clock. It is Friday, 8th of August. Charlie Rowley is here with me. We're talking about the one-in, one-out scenario, and I don't mean Julie Hartley-Brewer. 48,833 is the migrant tracker currently. Let's get Jamie on the voice notes.
Morning, Mike. Great show. Jamie from Hornchurch here. What everyone is failing to see with this one-in, one-out scheme is it's not even one-in, one-out. It's just extra people. Because all the ones that get deported back to France are now not eligible to come in on the scheme. So they'll just try it at a later date. And they'll just be part of the 17 in, one out that the actual number really is. So we're not getting one in, one out at all. We're just getting an extra 50,000 a year. I just don't see how this government seems to think that that's in any way, shape or form an acceptable deal for the British public.
It's really not, and you're absolutely right, Jamie. And Charlie, this is sort of indicative of how this government operates, isn't it? They come up with a plan, they come up with a sort of title for it, which doesn't really bear any resemblance to reality, because it isn't. It's not one in, one out. Under no possible kind of realistic manner is it one in, one out. It's at least 17 in before you get one out, and then the one out is replaced by one coming in. So actually, it's 17 in, one out, and then another one in. So it's actually 18 in and no outs, really. I mean, so the idea they keep calling it one in, one out is a sort of nonsense, but it's typical of Keir Starmer, who seems to think that if he says something, everybody will just believe it.
Yeah, and you and that voicemail from Jamie was right there, and it's in the Mail page 6. Starmer accused of gaslighting over and it is gaslighting. It is gaslighting the British public when you say that you're doing something and you are doing nothing of the kind. Right. And even if there is one that goes out and one that comes in to replace it. That person that comes in to replace it will be here because they claim that they've got a tie to the UK, that they've got a family member. That person will still need housing support, benefits, they'll have access to the NHS and all other kind of public services. That's not bringing the bill down, that's not bringing the situation under control.
And
that
it's also not, it doesn't address the deportation required of anybody who is actually here currently, who shouldn't be here. Because what we've got is a backlog, as we said, I think of about, I don't know, 67 or 70,000 people, many of whom are appealing, having been told that they can't get asylum, but they're still here. They're still in a hotel, they're still getting paid for, and their family is still getting paid for, and the whole thing is a complete and utter nonsense. And they've got to, I mean, the idea that they think this is now the beginning of the end, and this is now the real deal, and we're going to start kicking people out of the country. No, they're going to start kicking people out of the country who haven't got here yet. I mean, that seems to be the theory, but they're not kicking people out of the country who are not supposed to be here.
Yeah, exactly. And, I mean, Donald Trump was here, a few weeks ago now, but I think, his words still ring true. Whoever, gets on top of immigration, illegal immigration, will be the one that goes on to hopefully win the next general election.
Slightly amusing story off to the side about Rupert Lowe yesterday, who apparently complained, I don't know if he complained on social media, that he'd spotted a boat off Great Yarmouth, which of course is his constituency, and he said, they're even coming to Great Yarmouth, and he had alerted the authorities to it. So the Coast Guard got all excited and thought, oh my goodness goodness me, there's people of small boats coming all the way to Great Yarmouth, right? It turned out it was a rowing team who are actually circumnavigating Britain before going on a transatlantic rowing trip to raise money for charity. So the fact that they were actually rowing sideways past the coast like that, when they weren't actually coming into the coast, should have been the clue. But people were turning up on the beach, waiting for them to turn up, and it was like this whole social. It tells you how ridiculous social media is, really.
Yes, it is. But it's also worth. I mean, okay, mistake, and hopefully Rupert can hold his hands up to that. But I would rather people call out things like that, and the authorities respond, rather than people sit back and say, "Oh, I don't feel able to say anything." Because
one of the things that people said afterwards, well, it's no wonder he's reported this to the border force or to the Coast Guard, because it's happening all over the place. Yeah. And he's right, because it's happening in Devon. Some of the boats are not stopping in Dover, because that's the quickest route, and they're actually going round to places like Bournemouth and landing in sort of deserted coves where the people jump out and just run into the town. Yeah. So forget about the migrant tracker of whatever it is, 48,000 odd. There's plenty of people coming in that we don't even know about, that we don't even register.
And people are taking it into their own hands. I mean, like Rupert, as they reporting that rowing boat. The people of Bournemouth that we were talking about. I think there is now a voluntary safe patrol group being set up by local people that obviously feel that their town, their city, is no longer Bournemouth is no longer safe. So they'll be patrolling the streets themselves.
Absolutely.
God knows what kind of
There's been plenty of incidents of crime, particularly sex crime, against young women. Is Lee a new voice note, or have we done that one? Yeah, Lee's a new one. Let's go.
Morning, Mike. Lee from Chelmsford. We're ticking up to nearly 50,000 illegals in one calendar year. Now, I didn't study economics at the School of Economics, but that's 2.25 billion alone just for this lot. Where is this all going to end?
It's a very good question, Lee. Thank you very much indeed for it. We're coming back in a moment. We're going to take another break. Front page of the Times: single-sex spaces off limits to trans women. There's been a couple of stories this week about this, so we'll catch up with that. But basically, schools, hospitals, leisure centres and cinemas will be told to ban transgender women from using single-sex areas, including lavatories and changing rooms, under Equality's guidance to be submitted to ministers this month, because there are some organisations that are still dragging their heels on this, which is upsetting quite a few people. It's me and Charlie Rowley. We're back after this.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 6:39. I'm Mike Graham. Charlie Rowley's here with me as well. I've got this from Steve. I hope these greedy, money-grabbing hotel owners who are helping the spread of illegal migrants across the country will one day see the contracts cancelled and that British people will never return to them. But of course, by then they'll have stuffed millions in their pockets and walked away. I mean, I think that's right. There is something to be said for hoteliers, and there's not many of them, but there's been a few over the course of the last couple of years who've just said, I was approached by the Home Office, or I was approached by Serco, or one of these other, contractual companies, spaces, but I refused to hand my hotel over to them because, you know, I don't want to do that, you know, because hotels in many parts of Britain are part of the sort of the fabric of society. You know, people go there for retirement parties, they have weddings there, they have, you know, birth, christenings and all that sort of thing. And so many hotels have just now been blocked off for people that you can't go there anymore.
Yeah, well, anecdotally, I mean, I think in the Sun, relating to that Bournemouth story, I think it's the Premier Inn. I'm no spokesman for them or on commission or anything, but I think they've come out explicitly to say that they're telling the public they haven't got anyone in their hotels, they don't have a contract with the government, and they're specifically not seeking one. So, but also, I know a local pub back home in Ware, where I'm from in Hertfordshire. You know, they were approached. This is they've got a few rooms above
an actual pub.
Actual pub.
Wow.
Home Office approached them to say, can you house, you know, up to a dozen, I think it must have been. And this pub landlord, even though pubs are struggling up and down the country anyway, but he said no, because it's a community pub. He wants people to still be able to come into the pub and join. You lose a pub and lose it to migrants, it's just going to fuel community tensions even more. So he's rejected it. And I think that's fair play
good for him.
And I think that's quite
Absolutely.
right too.
Quite right too. Let's talk about what's on the front page of the Times. Single-sex spaces off limits to trans women. Only this week we saw the story of the 14-year-old girl who went into a Marks and Spencer's only to be to try and get a bra fitting, only to find that, you know, some great hulking brute, 6'2" in a dress, turned up and said, "Can I help you with your bra fitting, darling?" And quite rightly, the mother was appalled and was like, actually, no, she's traumatised by that, thanks very much indeed. And it turned out that the trans woman, who called himself a woman, was not actually due to be working in the bra fitting section and should have just been working in the general kind of clothes area in Marks and Spencer's. And it was like, what the hell is going on? J.K. Rowling's actually been calling for a boycott of Marks and Spencer's as a result, and you know that she's had a terrible backlash from the, you know, the trans brigade. But this is supposedly, because since the Supreme Court ruling that, you know, a biological woman is only a woman if she was born a woman, a lot of places, including hospitals, schools, shops, have not actually adhered to that.
Yes, and it is the woke gone mad, which I know people have known for a long time. And J.K. Rowling is brilliant, by the way. You're absolutely right. She's had a lot of pushback and a lot of trolling going on. But every response that she responds to those trolls on social media, she's brilliant, you know, and she is a brilliant asset to the UK. She's a fantastic writer. She should be heralded. And she's standing up for, we're all talking about equality. We're trying to find a way in which everybody can get on and live their lives to the fullest and respect everybody's equal rights. But it's the rights of women that have been railroaded in this situation.
Erased, exactly.
And time again, and I don't know why, people just can't accept that women want to have single-sex spaces, that those spaces should be protected, and they have an absolute right to have that.
Well, one of the more bizarre exchanges I saw was between her and India Willoughby, who is, of course, a trans woman, right? And India Willoughby actually wrote a tweet that said, "Isn't it bizarre that we were both born in the same year? I turned out as a woman and you turned out as a bigot." And you kind of go, one, you're not a woman, actually, and two, she's not a bigot. So, you know, congratulations for getting 0 out of 2. But, I mean, this is the thing. You know, you've got these blokes in dresses who are going on about how I'm more of a woman than you are, to a woman.
Yeah, and
it's ridiculous.
And this is where I think people, you know, whoever you are, you know, however you identify and whoever you believe you to be.
Yeah, but isn't it weird though that you find? I mean, and this is what I found about the Marks and Spencer story. You know, in what world does a man who wants to identify as a woman end up trying to fit a bra on a 14-year-old girl? I'm sorry, that sounds to me like you're a weirdo.
Yes.
A pervert.
Yes, there are.
What are you doing? Get the hell out of the dressing room and go and fit somebody's shoes.
Yes.
Right? If that's what you want to do.
Yeah, and it all, look, you know, from the back of Reform, I think, and this week announcing they had a prison czar, Vanessa Frake, I think her name was.
Talking she got herself in a right old mess,
She did. I think there is, and I don't want to open any kind of can of worms here, but I mean, I can only imagine in one situation, and one only, where if you are born a male, but you undergo, clearly, whatever you need to undergo to actually become it. So if you have your manhood removed,
surgery,
if you have implantations, so you physically look
and you've lived like a woman for 30 years or something like that.
Exactly. I do think in that situation you would, if you commit a crime that is not of a sexual nature, you know, you're a shoplifter, prolific shoplifter for whatever's, you know, has gone wrong in your life. If you end up going to have to face time behind bars, I think you're probably more at risk going to a men's prison.
Yes.
And you could be isolated
Although
somehow.
I agree with you, funnily enough.
That is the only situation.
But I had the same argument with a women's rights activist who said, actually, yeah, that's rubbish, though, because at the end of the day, there are places in male prisons where vulnerable prisoners can go. For example, if you're convicted of a sex crime or you're a convicted paedophile, you know, you're protected from the general prison population. So there's actually no reason why a trans woman couldn't go to that section of a male prison. And actually, having been told that argument, I kind of go along with it now, and I think that's right. But Reform have been at great pains to point out that this is not their policy.
Yes, yeah,
and actually, you know, it was all a bit of a mistake by Vanessa Frake. But we'll see how that all plays out.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Prince Andrew just before we take another break. Page 7 of the Daily Mail. He was at least twice the target of an assassination bid, and as I said earlier, none of it was from his own family, surprisingly. This was apparently after the Falklands War ended. This is the new book by Andrew Lowney, which is a real blockbuster book, by the way. The Mail have been serialising it. We found out that he was really, really rude to staff at Buckingham Palace and various other royal residences wherever he went. He called some bloke an effing imbecile for referring to the Queen Mother as the Queen Mother. Apparently you're supposed to refer to her as Queen Elizabeth, the Queen Mother, and threw the guy out of the place. He's also turned out to have used his sort of trade envoy status to make a load of money. He's got a terribly childish sense of humour. He sleeps with, you know, not just women, but apparently fuzzy animals. Toys, you know. I don't mean those weird people, Furby people.
It's furries.
The Daily Mail's exclusively serialised this book, and it turns out that he's told somebody, he's done a podcast, the author of the book, saying Argentine forces plotted to kill the prince shortly after their surrender to British forces in the Falkland Islands, and after the war he went to Mustique with Cousteau, where he was almost killed.
Yes,
but you know,
I mean,
they missed apparently.
Yes, and other plots by, you know, the IRA, which isn't, you know, out of this world to believe, of course. And it's, you know, he is. You know, I don't feel sorry for the guy. He's been in the public eye. He's clearly made a name for himself.
He's had a pretty decent old life.
He's had a decent life, but he can't get a break. He can't get a break anywhere, it seems, at the minute. And he's not even a working royal. He's had to you know, give all that up, and yet he still pulls focus. Whether it's these stories, these revelations in the book that you were talking about, whether it's what's happening in the States with Jeffrey Epstein and sort of the Ghislaine Maxwell, you know, the connection that he had there. She's obviously potentially been offered some sort of immunity or get out of jail card by revealing what she knows about Prince Andrew. It's all a bit of a mess, but you know, great revelations, as you say, and also some of a sexual nature as well. Didn't he lose his virginity when he was 11? Apparently, it's another one.
Apart from anything else, apart from it being incredibly, it's just horrible. He's underage. I mean, it's a crime, isn't it?
Well, yes.
I mean, whoever enabled him to do that surely should be locked up, shouldn't they?
Yes. Well, another question for Bonnie Blue, maybe.
Well, very possibly so. Yes. We're not going back there. Morning Mike says, Fran in Kent, if they have been detained, ready to be returned, why have they been provided with new clothes? In the video, they're all wearing matching tracksuits and have a blue bag of belongings. Are they getting baggage allowance now as well? What a load of planks. It's a very good point. And here one from Michael, who says, where are they being detained? In a hotel? I want to kick the TV in laughter or tears. Have a great Friday. I mean, it is incredible, isn't it? Because what we can see from that video that we showed, and we'll show it again, I'm sure, through the course of the show, is that that's exactly what used to happen to them. So, you know, they would arrive in Dover, you'd see them being walked off the Border Force boat, usually, you know, up a sort of gangplank into a building, and that's all we're seeing now. It's not like anything's different. And the fact that they're showing them being sort of, you know, tagged and having something, you know, a wristband, but probably for access all areas, you know, drinks are over here, you know, over here for the gym. And then they put in a van. That's what was happening to them anyway. This is not anything special that's going on.
No, in the great words of Theresa May, nothing has changed when it comes to this particular policy.
It's not. What do they call it? What did they call it? An unfriendly environment. What was the phrase that they used to call it? Do you remember? It was a hostile environment.
Oh, hostile. Yes,
hostile environment. Yeah, that's what I mean. They haven't used that phrase, but they'd like to.
Yes.
But it doesn't look particularly hostile to me.
No, and it's got to be about optimism.
I mean, a hostile environment for me would be them walking off the boat and getting punched in the face by somebody from Border Force and thrown down the floor, handcuffed with their hands behind them, you know, tied with their feet manacled like they do in America, put an orange jumpsuit on and march them into a detention centre which has actually got bars on the doors. That's what I'd like to see.
Well, that would be, and if those, you know, if those images...
That's proper detention.
Yes, yes. And if there's not the school stuff that Yvette Cooper seemed to sort of keep referring to, they're in detention. They're in detention.
Everybody gets asked, what's your star sign? You know, and what would you like? Are you vegan? Or would you like, you know, would you like the chicken or the beef? You know,
yes.
For God's sake. Anyway, listen, 10 minutes to 7. More coming up after this, including how inflation is costing you more and more money.
A lot of your viewers are going to be older people. They're going to be people with pensions. They're going to be people that are very focused on that side of things. And you might think, well, you know, we've got it hard too. And there's lots of talk now about taxing pensions and things like that. But what older viewers need to understand is their state pension isn't held in some gold-plated pot somewhere. Their state pension is paid by young people working today. Okay, so the taxes that young people like me pay your pension directly in the near term. Okay.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 6:53. We are here, of course, until 10 o'clock. It's Friday, and it is August the 8th. It's my birthday tomorrow, by the way. I don't want to make a big thing of it because I'm not going to. I just thought I might as well mention it because somebody will mention it. Let's get a voice note from Andy.
Morning, Mike. Andy from Birmingham. Hope you're well, mate. Just thinking about all the cabinet, really, most of them, really, all their positions are untenable, aren't they? Well, you've got Rachel Reeves, who makes Diane Abbott look like a super brain. She's going to crash the economy. She's going to bankrupt the country. Everybody can see it. Nobody's doing anything about it. She won't resign, won't be sacked. And you've got the fake solicitor, and you've got all the ministers the Minister for Homelessness that makes people homeless, and you've got the Minister for Corruption who allegedly got to face trial for corruption. You've got Rayner who said she'd build 1.5 million homes, and yet concrete is the lowest output for 10 years, 15 years. I could go on and on and on. West Streeting, really. You know, thought he'd got a gold medal by sorting the doctors out last term, only to be obviously skewered by them. And then that's without even mentioning Starmer. I don't know what's going on, mate, but this scares me. Anyway, have a great day.
Andy, very well played. They are hopeless. They're so hopeless. You can't literally move. I mean, I was saying to Christian yesterday, the producer, about, you know, let's just run through the card of all of the things that they've got wrong. Just in terms of ministers that have had to resign, you know, ministers have had to admit that they got something wrong, embarrassing explanations on television or in the House of Commons. It's just. I don't think I've ever known a government like it.
No. But apart from that, it's all going incredibly well.
I mean, you know, and here, you know, moving on to Rachel Reeves, homeowners have been boosted, according to the Sun page 2 today, by a 5th interest rate cut in a year. But Chancellor Rachel Reeves' tax rate is pushing up the cost of the weekly shop because they say 4% is now the Bank of England's base rate, down 0.25% from yesterday. But 4% is also the expected rate of inflation by the autumn. And I think I'm right in saying that inflation not running at something like 3.6% now?
Yeah.
And it's likely to go up to 4 in the autumn, and likely to go up even higher than that. And people always say to me, whenever we talk about, you know, the basket of various things that are counted for inflation, inflation is much higher than 4%, because if you go into a shop now to buy something that you bought even last month, it's probably likely to cost you about 50% more than it did. You know, and I'm talking about like items that you don't really notice. Like people have said to me, like, you go and buy a packet of spaghetti, used to be 40 pence, it's now 70 pence, you know, which is practically double. Yeah. And because it's only 70 pence, you kind of don't think about it.
No, but it impacts, and it's you're absolutely right. This is a sort of, you know, giving with one hand, sort of taking with another. He says, because the interest rate cut is one thing. And by the way, you know, the government were very quick to jump on the bandwagon and saying how successful this is. Fifth cut in a row.
Nothing to do with them, is it?
Nothing to do with the government. No. Bank of England is totally independent. It was a very, very knife-edge vote. 5 members to 4 voted for the cut, so it went through. But as you say, inflation will go up, or will risk of going up. That is the sole purpose of the Bank of England, really, to get inflation down. It should be hovering around 2%. That's its target. That's been its target ever since Gordon Brown made it independent. So the idea that inflation goes up, that's a cost of living impact for ordinary, hard-working people up and down the country. Working people.
Did you hear there was a new phrase that came out yesterday, everyday families? That was one from Keir Starmer yesterday. We talked about everyday families. Nobody knows what that means.
No, and you know, well, let's look forward to hearing the definition.
Yeah, well, we're still waiting for the definition of working people. We don't know what that is. This from somebody, Carl, from up north. He says, in those clips you're showing on migrants being detained, how come they're all dressed in the same stuff? Why are we spending money on clothes for these people? We are paying again for absolutely nothing. And Steve says, on the economy, if shareholders could see a company they had a financial interest in being run into massive debt whilst the directors and management constantly lied and covered up their incompetence, there'd be a vote of no confidence and the guilty parties would be removed in next to no time. Why do we have to put up with Reeves and Starmer and his fellow lying incompetence for another 4 years? Well, that's a very good point. If it was a company, if it was a publicly run company, not only would they be fired, they'd actually be probably arrested. You know, the fraud squad would move in and go, you know, you people have been concealing the truth, you've been lying about the actual financial figures, and you've been cooking the books. And that is an offence. Yeah, exactly. To all intents and purposes.
Totally. And the way in which, you know, the Labour government came in and, OK, there was, you know, clearly issues with the economy under the last Tory government.
Yeah, but it's a lot better than it is now.
Yeah, totally, right? And, you know, the idea that now it's a 50 billion back hole.
I know. And they're not saying who's to blame for that, are they?
Exactly. And
it's obviously them.
And how are you going to plug that gap? It's going to be tax rises. And, you know, Rachel Reeves is going to have to come back for asking for more money, something that she'd already ruled out, something that they'd ruled out the last election.
They said they wouldn't do it.
So they wouldn't, and she's going to...
More lies.
So, you know, she's going... I think she's going to have to go.
She is, absolutely.
I can't see...
He's going to have to go. They're all going to have to bloody go.
There are reports that somebody... you know, he's been in Chequers, I think, for the last couple of weekends, having meetings with ministers. Yeah. They've given him 6 months, I think, to turn it around. Right. Otherwise, it's
otherwise, it's curtains.
Yeah.
One final one. We've literally got no time at all, about 30 seconds, but front page of the Daily Mirror, a daily weight loss pill could be available on the NHS by next year. I mean, do me a favour. The NHS, the world's worst organisation, useless, doesn't work, nothing works, and now they want to give away more free stuff to people who are fat. I mean, just ridiculous.
Yeah, I think there's other things you can do to get your weight under control, and there's more people where more money should be going to people that need their operations and should be and needing the NHS.
Next, it'll be free fat jabs for migrants. Yeah. Won't it? That'll be the next thing we know.
Yeah.
Anyway, listen, Charlie, good to see you. Have a great weekend.
Thank you.
Thank you very
and
much.
happy birthday.
Thank you very much. It's coming up to 7 o'clock. We'll be back after the news.
My message to people smugglers is this. I think smashing the gangs is a deterrent. Smash, 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 smash the gangs. Smash the people smuggling gangs.
People smuggling puns.
He couldn't even smash an avocado for a piece of toast.
Or the people... What would that... The people...
I think smashing the gangs is a deterrent. Well, it might be if you smashed any, if you found any.
The people smash... The smash...
And he hasn't smashed anything. I mean, literally all he does is he smashes records every sort of couple of weeks, where more and more people come in a period of 24 hours.
Smash the gangs that are running this vile trade.
You're never going to smash the gangs. That's something that basically is impossible. The gangs are like the Hydra. You cut the head off and another two grow.
So I did write to ministers and say that I wasn't convinced that smashing the gangs was the right sort of way of thinking about things.
We will smash the gangs that undermine our security.
Keir Starmer has just tweeted 15 minutes ago. He says, "I know you're angry about immigration. I get it. We will smash the people smuggling gangs at source." Maybe I'll just read it all in his accent, shall I?
There is no return to freedom of movement. We have left the EU. I do not accept that prevents us working with other police units here, with prosecutors here, to smash the gangs.
Well, I'm sure the smuggling gangs are absolutely quaking in their boots now. Keir Starmer's on their case. Solving this issue, smashing the gangs, is that the impossible dream, Tom?
It really seems beyond him at the minute, I have to say.
We're going to get the evil people smugglers and we're going to smash them and we're going to put them in jail. That will solve the migrant crisis. Prime Minister Keir Starmer's promise to smash the gangs has resulted in just 5 convictions. Hurrah for operating small boats.
So what he really wants to say is that this policy of smashing the gangs is a total and utter disaster. There isn't a cat in hell's chance that it's going to work.
It's crap. It's crap. That's what he's basically saying.
I know you're angry about immigration. I get it. Mark my words, I will take back control of our borders. That means cutting migration, ending the use of asylum hotels and ramping up our efforts to stop small boat crossings.
It's like a parallel universe, the real world, as told by the impressive David Bolt, and Keir Starmer and Rachel Reeves' fantasy world.
We will smash the people smuggling gangs at source.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, coming up to 3 minutes past 7. We are here. It's Friday. We managed to get to the end of yet another incredible week of news, right? Friday the 8th of August is the date, and we are here until 10 o'clock, of course, when it's time for Alex Phillips to come in and take over from 10. We've got lots to talk about this morning. Asylum seasiders in Bournemouth is the front page of The Sun this morning. There are not 1, not 2, but 3 separate hotels in Bournemouth housing migrants. And unfortunately, I have to say, you have to make the connection between the fact that in Bournemouth, in the past couple of years, ever since the asylum seeker hotels have been, shall we say, commissioned, there's been an awful lot of an increase in sex attacks and in crime generally in the Bournemouth area. And of course, there have been several instances of teenage girls being sexually assaulted by these people because they are now in one of the most beautiful seaside resorts in the entire nation, down there in Dorset. Wish you weren't here, is what it says on pages 4 and 5. Migrants in 3 seaside hotels. Locals fear for the tourist trade because, of course, it's all part of Britain's broken borders. We wrote about it. I wrote about it in the Sun this week. But there's one hotel called the Britannia. There's another one called the Chine Hotel. Another one called the Roundhouse. If you live down in that part of the world, I'd love to hear from you this morning because it must have changed the way that the area absolutely sort of operates. And one of the hotels, the Britannia, has got not only a load of migrants staying in, but they've got a big fence outside which houses a lot of bikes, because they're all working, of course, for these food delivery companies as well. Meanwhile, we had the first day yesterday of the one-in, one-out, as it's rather laughably called, new policy of this Labour government. They claim that they're going to stop people coming to this country, but of course what they've done is they've said they've detained the first people. They haven't said how many people they've detained, and they won't say how long it will be before those people they have detained are going to be sent back to France. They haven't said exactly how that's going to work, and they certainly haven't said where it is that they are being detained. Bernard Expenses here, we'll be asking him that question as well. Front pages have got many different stories on. Front page of the Mirror, weight loss pill is going to be made available soon on the NHS. The Times goes with the single-sex spaces are going to be off limits to trans women, as they should be because of the Supreme Court ruling earlier on this year. There are now schools, hospitals, leisure centres and cinemas will have to be told that they must ban transgender women from using single-sex areas, including lavatories and changing rooms. And that should be the case. And, of course, the other big story, and the terrible, terrible story for Labour, is yet another minister has had to resign. This, of course, is Rushanara Ali. We spoke about her yesterday. She was the homelessness minister. She's now jobless as a minister. She's so wealthy that she's got a house in London, at least one house in London, which rents for £4,000 a month. She kicked out her own tenants in order to put the price up, which will soon be illegal under this Labour government. She's been accused of staggering hypocrisy this morning following mounting calls to resign. She finally stood down from government to avoid becoming, as they always say, a distraction. She says that all relevant legal requirements were fulfilled, and I take my responsibilities and duties very seriously. Get lost, darling. Rushana Ali, you should go to the back benches and you should actually resign as an MP, because we should not be paying your salary for being a complete and utter hypocrite and a complete numpty. 0344 499 1000 is the number. This, of course, is Morning Glory. Let's get it on. Sean in Gloucester says this country is in a desperate state and being made worse every day by the completely stupid Keith Starling. One in, one out. Did Rachel Thieves do the maths for that? He has to go. The Labour Party have to go and take the Tories with them. We cannot take another 4 years of these morons. And one from somebody who doesn't give a name. Surely it's better not to let the gangs aware of the numbers, as they will be rubbing their hands together, thinking the same asylum seeker will be back in contact for another chartered dinghy ride. Well, I would have thought if you want to put the gangs, as they keep calling them, the vile people smuggling gangs, human traffickers, on alert and on sort of notice that you're coming for them, surely the best thing to do is to say that every single person you've sent over has now been detained. So whatever money that you think you're going to be able to get from them, you're not going to get, because they know that when they get here, instead of being put in a nice hotel, instead of being given a nice life to live, they're actually going to be detained, put in a prison and then sent back. If that was true, and that's what was actually happening, surely that would be the message you'd want to send to people smugglers, wouldn't you? I don't understand why you wouldn't want to do that. But, of course, what we now know is that Yvette Cooper, and we'll play the clip in a minute, Yvette Cooper doesn't want to tell us how many people they've detained, because it's probably about 2. That's the truth of it. Something else that was weird, just before we talked about expense, was that Keir Starmer did a big interview with Channel 5 News the other day, and it went completely under the radar. Nobody saw it, because nobody watches Channel 5, and it wasn't reported on, it wasn't in the papers. So we'll play you a little bit of it right here. Here he is being asked about the one-in, one-out scenario.
The one in, one out, which I know, all these things come across the desk of the Prime Minister regularly, but today there's been talk of the fact that countries like France will have a veto. If you're under 18, you can be exempt. If you've got a current claim from the Human Rights Court, you'd be exempt to that. Is that plan already scuppered before it's really begun?
No, not at all. And successive governments have tried to get a scheme like this off the ground. We've built good relations with France, and we've got the scheme up and running. The most important thing is that it's a deterrent, because it says to people, if you make that journey by boat, you may well be returned to France, back to where you started. That is hugely important. Obviously, it's a pilot at the moment. We need to see how it works. But I'm really pleased that we've struck this deal. I think it'll send a very strong message, and we can build on this as we go forward.
He thinks it will be a strong message. You may be sent back to France, and the important thing is it's a pilot. What an absolute git. Benedict Spencer's here. Benedict, very good morning to you. Sorry, I'm not feeling very charitable this morning. I mean, this guy's really starting to cheese me off in a massive way.
I mean, to be sort of listening to those words, whilst you at Talk have got the totalizer of the number of people that have come across the channel illegally, almost hitting 50,000 right there, and it goes, oh well, it's only a pilot, and you just think it's wonderful that we've kind of got to this stage, isn't it? That we're over a year into his administration, we've almost hit 50,000 illegals that we know about, and it's the softly approach, and honestly, I think it's simply not quite filtered through yet, the politicians in Westminster, how seriously people are taking this. They're starting to catch on, but the sluggishness with which they drag their feet on this issue, whereas other countries are, especially in the United States, completely awake to quite how general publics feel about how much they're being taken for a ride by these people. And even now in this country, we're going to be years behind everyone else when it comes to deporting people. We just are.
Yeah, exactly right. I mean, there's a great piece in the Mail yesterday. Sue Reed, one of their good investigative journalists, did a piece about how even in Europe now, they're so worried about the sort of the growing threat from the jihadis coming out of ISIS camps in Syria and in sort of, southern Iraq. They're basically worried that, that they're going to travel around Europe and create all sorts of terrorist atrocities. So they've set up proper checkpoints now in the Schengen area, in France, in Germany, in Norway, I think in Denmark as well, and also in Italy, Greece. They're all now nervous because they've all realised that this whole experiment with migration has been a complete and utter dismal failure. And not only is it costing the economies of all those countries hugely, it's also costing their cultural status massively, and it's dangerous.
I mean, as you say, it is just unbelievably dangerous, but people have been saying this for years and years, that this would happen.
Well, you and I have been talking about this for at least 4 or 5 years, haven't we?
Yeah, exactly. So it's not as if people have not been aware, and it's just the very classic sticking the fingers in the ears, going, no, diversity is our strength. It's all magnificent. Everybody wants to come to this country. We're going to drop them in Leeds, and they'll magically become British. It just hasn't happened. It hasn't happened in Europe. It hasn't happened here. I read a stat the other day that something like between 1 in 4 and 1 in 5 members of the Pakistani community in Birmingham simply refuses to identify as British. They're not interested in assimilating. That's just one community. This entire idea of mass migration and multiculturalism, not just mass migration, but the idea that once you're here, you don't have to assimilate, you can have your own culture. It has been a disaster, and we continue to reap the wonderful benefits, which are, as far as I'm aware, not very much. I mean, please, people write in and tell me. It's foreign cuisine, and that's about it.
Right. But we had that before any of this mass influx of people anyway, and to be honest, as much as, you might say there's great wealth to be had from this cultural exchange, up to a point. I'm not sure I've ever been to an Eritrean restaurant. I'm not sure anyone from Sudan has ever given me anything that I can really, take home and go, oh, that was great. Some of these countries which are particularly, ravished by war, famine, and all sorts of other terrible things, they've got nothing to offer this country. They're not skilled workers. They can't come here and improve our situation. And quite frankly, we just don't want them. I'm sorry to say that, but that's just the way it is.
I mean, the whole thing about the skilled workers and, the sort of the post-Brexit massive influx of people under Boris Johnson, and the idea that, that all of these people are somehow highly trained, highly educated, and that our economy desperately needs them. It's a lie. Everyone knows it's a lie. Everyone knows that this has been done to suppress wages, that you bring in lots and lots of people on this scale, and they will work for a lot less. That's the whole reason behind half of this. And I mean, the care home sector especially, where, once upon a time, quite recently, our care sector was understaffed, but it had predominantly British or Eastern European workers who were highly trained, all spoke English. And we've replaced those people with people from places like India and Sub-Saharan Africa who are not highly trained, for whom English is not, in fact, even their second or third language. And we're beginning to see the benefits of this. The whole reason that this was done was not for the benefit of the elderly or those in care. It was to save money. And that, at the root of all of this, is what happens in Britain, is that we're happy to sell off the family silver for a brief reprieve for a couple of years, and then you're mixed with the problem down the line. In that case, of course, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people who will have the right to indefinite leave to remain and will cost us tens of billions.
I know, absolutely staggering. The other story that's kind of disappeared because of the migrant kind of crisis that's going on this week is the online safety bill. Let me play you another clip from that Channel 5 News interview, which, as I said, nobody ever really saw. This is what Starmer said about free speech.
I'm in favour of free speech, of course. I mean, the United Kingdom has had free speech for a very, very long time. It's one of our defining values, and we will protect it fiercely. But I said, but I'm also in favour of protecting our children. And I think that's really important. That's not a free speech issue as far as I'm concerned.
He's literally locked people up for saying things, and he's in favour of free speech.
He's a liar. He's just sitting there and he's just lying, and everyone knows that he's lying. I mean, for a start, he starts off by going, "Oh, in the United Kingdom, we've had free speech for a very, very long time." No, we haven't. We've not had free speech. We've never had free speech in this country. We do not have a First Amendment. This is something that lots of people would quite like to see, and politicians like him push back against. They absolutely don't want people to be able to say exactly what's on their mind, because then we might have been able to point out a lot earlier that a lot of policies put forward by his government and others are completely insane. The whole thing dressing the online safety bill up entirely as, oh, well, it's about protecting your kids, and if you don't like it, well, you're on the same side as people who want to hurt your kids. The idea, the gall that they would push this at the exact same moment as this mass migration crisis, at the exact same moment that we have the drip feeding of stories of attacks on minors almost every day now in this country, and of course against the backdrop of the grooming gang scandal, which his party voted against having a national inquiry for. I'm sorry, where does this guy get the cojones to sit here and lie like that?
I know. I can't believe that he gets away with it. You know, we sit here every single day, and, you know, for a while I thought I was the only one that was calling him a liar, but it turns out actually everybody thinks that he's a liar. Downing Street actually got a bit worked up about it and started complaining about the fact that I kept calling him a liar. But let's look at Kemi Badenoch, because she actually called him one.
We actually had a video of how many times he had told lies at the dispatch box.
So it sounds like you do believe that he's a liar, though.
Yeah,
he is. I mean, in any other world, the Conservative leader, the leader of the opposition, calling the Prime Minister a liar on, you know, national television would be a massive story. But people just kind of accept that he's a liar and ignore him now, don't they?
I think it's a combination of they accept that he's lying, and also they've just stopped really caring about Kemi Badenoch being leader of the opposition. And, you know, I think perhaps it's a little unfair to Kemi Badenoch. You know, she's not solely responsible for the disaster of the last 14 years. There are many worse culprits than that on the Conservative benches. But I think she does have to look specifically on this issue of the Online Safety Act. Lots of her own MPs voted in favour of this at various stages before it became law. Lots of them were very much in favour of this. So I think that it's a bit tricky for the Conservatives to sit here now that this act has come into being and saying, oh, well, isn't it terrible? When you're kind of sitting there going, well, you had 14 years in which to push hard in favour of free speech, to perhaps even legalise it, mandate it, put safeguards in place, and you didn't do that. You did the exact opposite. And so that's why I think a lot of people, it's not so much that I think that they just accept Starmer as a liar. They do. They also just don't care what the Conservatives have to say at the moment, or at the very least not on issues like this.
No, exactly right. I'll just get your view on, finally, Rushanara Ali, the latest government minister who has done what she said she would do on the tin. Minister for Homelessness, makes people homeless. Brilliant.
It is brilliant. It's perfect. It's hot on the heels. Hot on the heels of Keir Starmer's corruption czar being indicted for corruption in Bangladesh.
Right.
I think it's just, you know, we should really go through the list of all the Labour junior ministers and all of them and think, well, there's going to be a scandal along these lines. So, I don't know, armed forces minister might be involved in gun running is the sort of story that we might.
I mean, I bet you if you actually worked in a newspaper in this day and age and you just set somebody onto that kind of investigation, go through, as you say, every single one, you'd find a story for all of them.
Yeah, and the joy is, of course, that as government expands and it takes on even more control of your life and more departments and more ministries are set up, there are more opportunities for this sort of insanity. I mean, some people would say that, you know, a landlord should be able to do what they want with their property. But again,
Well, some people would say that, but the Labour government are actually making a law which would make it, what she did, illegal.
Exactly, the optics of this particular government saying, oh, well, it's all perfectly legal and above board, even though, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, we think it shouldn't be. I mean, it's a good old-fashioned political corruption story, basically, of morals rather than actual activity.
Yeah, absolutely right. Great to talk to you, Benedict. Thank you very much indeed. Benedict Spence, political commentator there. Let's get some voice notes on board. Here's Kitty on Labour.
Morning, Mike and team. Kitty from Kent here. Mike, yet again, you are obviously right. The government are constantly lying to us in every single way. But the worst lie for me in Yvette Cooper's dead-eyed, flat-faced, monotone rubbish was that these are small boats. A small boat carries 1 or 2 or 3 people. These are massive boats. They're carrying 50, 60, 70, 80 people. And it is not a perilous journey because they are escorted by French police and by British Navy, not like the lifeboat people, whatever. So the lies continue. I'm fed up with it.
I know. Most people are. It's shocking that they can continue to lie in the way that they do and get away with it. Absolutely staggering. Morning, Mike, says Dave. If I was a people smuggler, what I would do is increase the number of boats because anyone with a brain knows the country couldn't cope. And one here that came in on Twitter from a boy. He says, has Charlie Rowley inadvertently worked out the government's plan for getting migrants out of hotels? They're going to dump them all into failing pubs. Paul in Staffordshire. Interesting. Yeah, maybe that's what they're going to do. I mean, let's hear more of your stories. Let's hear what you're hearing from your communities, because we know this weekend there's going to be even more demonstrations, even more protests outside of migrant hotels, outside of housing complexes which are planning to house migrants for free on the taxpayer. You know, this problem is not going away. Whatever Keir Starmer thinks he's doing with his one-in, one-out cobblers, right, that's not changing anything on the street of this country, on the high street of this country and on the residential areas of this country. People are sick to the back teeth of it and they're getting angrier and angrier. I kid you not. 7:21.
What do you feel about ID cards, digital ID cards? Is that something that Reform UK would support?
Well, look, I personally don't have a problem with an ID card. You know, I don't see what the issue is. Most of our information now is on our smartphones anyway.
Can we trust the system, though?
Well, what more, how much more could we be at risk? As I say, all of our information is out there in a cloud, in the ether, whatever you want to call it.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. I'm Mike Graham with you all the way through until 10 o'clock. Of course, it's 7:24 in the morning. It is August the 8th. It's Friday. We've reached the end of another week. It's an absolute shocker once again for Keir Starmer. The anti-corruption minister had to go. Now he's got an anti-homelessness minister who's had to go because she made some people homeless. Graham in Wrexham says, an anti-corruption minister done for corruption, an anti-homeless minister making people homeless. I don't think they're quite understanding their brief at all. And how about this from Diana in London? She says, apparently in the small print of the agreement, the French do not have to reveal any illegal immigrants' backgrounds to us. Starmer has said that they will all be vetted. So how will that work? It's exactly the same. We still won't know who we are getting. Exactly right. That is the problem. Let's get a voice note from Pete.
Mike, this 17 in, 1 out. If the human rights lawyers fail to get the 1 out, does that still mean that we've got to take the 17 in? These illegal immigrants, that's a right old con, isn't it? And apparently it's got a time limit of only a certain amount of months. So we're back here again. I mean, Keith Starman and all these cronies think we're going to be forgetful about this. Meanwhile, they will still come, because the ones that are not allowed in because they're still illegal and not legal immigrants, they'll still come on the boats.
Yep. That's the problem. You know, what Keir Starmer's actually done in this deal with the French is to make a compound interest payment basically into our country for more migrants to get here. Because what it's made possible now is that people can apply to come here legally who would otherwise chance their arm coming illegally, and those illegal people will still come anyway, and most of them will still be allowed to stay, and hardly any of them will be sent back. And meanwhile, we'll get even more people coming. It's an absolute shambles. Let's talk to Sir Bill Cash, former Conservative MP, former chairman of the European Scrutiny Committee as well. Sir Bill, very good morning to you.
Morning to you. Very nice to see you again. 3 cheers for Talk Radio.
Very kind, thank you. 3 cheers for common sense is what I will say.
Yeah, absolutely, that's the king.
You couldn't have done a worse deal if your life depended on it. You know, Keir Starmer is so enthralled to the Europeans that he thinks that, you know, shaking hands with Emmanuel Macron is the answer to everything. He seems to have done what nobody thought he could do, which is to make the migrant problem actually even worse.
I agree entirely. It's a complete farce, this. The position in a nutshell is that you can't actually, under these arrangements, and this is in the agreement itself, the agreement doesn't apply at all where there are human rights claims, where there are judicial claims, where there are court orders and injunctions. And every single person has all these things who comes over. Right. All they have to do is to say, I claim asylum, and then they're in. Yeah. This can be overcome. Mike, this is the real point, and I've said it before, and I'm going to say it again. This can be overcome very simply in the United Kingdom by passing clear and unambiguous law, which, by the way, the Supreme Court will accept, so long as those are clear and unambiguous words used in the Act. Furthermore, in the European Union, they can't do that, because they've just, for example, had another case in Italy, and there's also one in Greece as well, under which the courts are telling the government through the European Court of Justice that they cannot allow any changes in the law. So the net result is, in Europe they can't do it, in the UK we can. Why the heck are we not doing it? Yeah. That's my point. I've said it before. It's an absolute and total disgrace, and this agreement is a farce. And we're going to have to pay the costs of it anyway. Right. And only 5% will ever be returned. I mean, do they take us for fools? The answer is yes.
Exactly
and we cannot put up with this any longer.
No, because not only are only 5% going to be returned, but those 5% are then going to be replaced. So yes, you're actually going to end up with more people here than ever.
I mean, you couldn't invent it.
No.
And every single person watching this programme, every single person in the country knows it. As you said before, I agree with all the remarks that I've heard from other people over the last few minutes when I've been waiting for it to come on here. It's absolutely farcical. And I can't believe that they can even stand there in front of the country and say, we're solving this problem, because they're actually making it worse.
Exactly. And this is before we get to the point where the next part of the agreement that he's got with Emmanuel Macron and with the European Union is that we open the borders once again to sort of basically freedom of movement for youth workers coming from the EU to come and live and work here.
The youth mobility system is riddled with problems regarding not only the number of people who are coming over, but the fact that people who come on visas, if that's what they get, actually never return.
No.
Or if they do, it doesn't work. This whole immigration issue can be resolved. I did it in the House of Commons when I was there 3 years ago. 2 years ago, I brought forward an amendment and I put it down. It was supported by an enormous number of Conservative MPs. Unfortunately, Rishi Sunak wasn't prepared to accept it. Bottom line, I had one-to-one meetings with him, and then he does an interview with Nick Robinson after he'd left office, and this was a few weeks ago, and he admitted that he would now get out of the European Court of Human Rights. But in Europe, it's not just the European Court of Human Rights, Mike, it's also the European Court of Justice.
Yeah.
So every country in Europe is itself now completely hamstrung by this. And in Hungary, where Viktor Orban is saying, I won't have any migrants, he's having his country, believe it or not, and people might be astonished, but it's true, has to pay €1 million a day for failure to comply with the migrants law.
Outrageous, isn't it? Absolutely
it's
outrageous.
Unbelievable.
It really is. And meanwhile, and I know we've spoken about this before, we are yet to still see the benefits or otherwise, and I think you know what I mean by that, of signing up to this sort of closer, position where we are now going to be subject to EU rules, which we voted to be outside of, on food standards and on all sorts of other things.
Well, it's absolutely critical, this. There was a poll by Queen Mary College and YouGov, which is the most respected of all the polling organisations. And the question was, the questions were, there were 20 questions on all matters relating to the way in which we run our country. And every single one, it showed that out of 20 questions, 60% of the people said, we want to have our own independent control over our government, our system, irrespective of international agreements. Question after question. And the amazing thing that some people may find worth knowing is that actually this included people from the Labour Party, it included people from the Greens, it included people from the Liberal Democrats, and of course Conservatives and others. But the reality is that this proves that not only do people want to have Brexit, they actually also want to control their own laws, and that's what our parliament's meant to be doing. And this government is completely betraying the British people. This reset, this invasion of our sovereignty, is a total and utter disgrace. And I'm working on it pretty much flat out, on getting arguments out through. We've got sovereignty groups, we've got this polling system. We are absolutely determined that the British people will know what's going on, because the British people are being taken not only for a ride, they're being completely betrayed by this attempt to rejoin the European Union. And it's all being done in secret, particularly as my European Scrutiny Committee has been abolished, so people don't even know what's going on.
I know. Well, this government is becoming more and more well known for hiding facts from the public and trying to make sure that nobody ever finds out what they're doing. It's a shocking state of affairs. Bill, great to talk to you as ever. Thank you very much indeed. Have a lovely weekend. Sir Bill Cash, former Conservative MP, former chairman of the European Scrutiny Committee, as he says, which has now been completely done away with. So there is no more scrutiny on what is the relationship with the European Union, and there is no further scrutiny on what Keir Starmer's up to behind everybody's back. Because let's face it, this man cannot be trusted. He's been proven to be a liar. He doesn't tell us the truth. He conceals the truth, in fact, from us. It's got to stop. Mike, this is from Mick in Wallington. My friend worked hard all her life to retire to a bungalow in Bournemouth. She now lives in fear of drugs, crime and migrant gangs roaming the town and the beach. The police do not respond and are despised, woke and useless. She can't even sell her home, and so she can't move. That's terrible, isn't it? Lizzie from East Kilbride says, I don't believe one word of this latest Labour propaganda ad. Why is it when you see the migrants coming off the boats, they're all wearing different kinds of clothing and nice trainers? Then, when we're shown them supposed to be in the so-called detention centre with their faces blurred, they all seem to be wearing dark-coloured boiler suits. Why do they need to all get changed into these to be processed? I think they're telling us more porkies. That is the problem. Morning, Mike. Why does Cooper always refer to the vile trade in human beings as if the migrants are slaves being transported against their will? The smugglers are providing a service for which the migrants pay. They fight to get on the boats. Yeah, this is obviously one of the things that the Labour government is trying to kind of propagate, that it's all about the vile people smuggling gangs, because, again, in their kind of little bizarre world of lefties, they can't say that migrants are bad people. They can't say that they're coming here to commit crime. They can't say that they're rapists or terrorists. They have to say that, oh, they're all vulnerable people that all need help. You know, they're coming here desperate for a new life because, you know, where they come from is so terrible because it's all our fault. Well, no. It's not true. Some of these people who are coming are terrorists. Some of them are rapists. Some of them are criminals. And some of them have got no good intentions for this country. And many of them will never, ever integrate. Many of them will never get a proper job. What the hell are we doing inviting them in? And why are we not kicking them out? All these people that Keir Starmer says he's detained, why are they not now on a plane back to France? Where are they? And what are they doing? And who's paying for it? 7:35.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 7:36. I'm Mike Graham with you all the way through until 10 o'clock. It's Friday. It's the 8th of August. We've reached the end of another week. We'll play some more gaps throughout the course of the show as well. Mike says, JD, why, oh why, are the so-called leaders of our country all got such terrible, awful voices, all nasal and weaselly? Well, it's almost as if they went to the same voice coach. You know that one that came up on Christmas that time? Oh, yeah, well, during COVID, you know, it's perfectly normal, isn't it? Morning, Mike, says Gary. Regards immigration, just think how bad it would be if we were not an island. We'd be overrun. My blood runs cold thinking about it. Gary in Shrewsbury. Let's get a voice note from James.
Morning, Mike. James from Blackburn. Well, it's another week. End of the first week of August. I mean, obviously, it's pure and utter despair. You're not looking out thinking, oh, it's sunny and it's bright, but at least the football season starts again tomorrow. I mean, the homeless minister, I mean, what even is that, a homeless minister making people homeless? Rachel Reeves just doing what Rachel does and tanking the economy. Keir, he's not well. I think we should go easy on him. Yeah, I don't think he's well. I mean, that Channel 5, he just talks complete bollocks all the time. And, well, it's just nonsense, isn't it? And, yeah, we are going down the gurgler, Mike. And have a very, very happy birthday tomorrow, sir. All the best.
Oh, James, brilliant. It's true. I mean, what's wrong with him, right? And who's telling him to wear a dark shirt all the time? Like a black shirt or a dark blue shirt. It looks like a total plank, right? at least wear a white shirt or, you know, a light-coloured shirt. You don't have to wear a tie all the time. I mean, I do, but not all the time. You know, I do it on the show, but I don't wear one all the time. But, you know, he's the Prime Minister of Britain. Why is he dressed like somebody from New Order? God's sake. Let's get a little bit of an idea of the mindset of Rushanara Ali. Here's what she says about homelessness.
We are taking action to tackle the root causes of rough sleeping and homelessness.
Yeah, we're putting more people on the street. I've just evicted 4 tenants. You're fired. Let's talk to Professor Anthony King, the Chair of War Studies, University of Exeter, advisor to the Armed Forces as well. Anthony, very good morning to you.
Morning.
Good to talk to you. We're living in interesting times, as we say quite frequently. It looks like there's going to be some kind of summit between Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin, possibly involving Volodymyr Zelensky. We're hearing that it might be in the UAE. What are you hearing?
Yeah, I mean, that's the story. I think a discussion between President Trump and President Putin is likely. I don't think at this stage, or maybe at any stage, that Putin is going to go into a room with President Zelensky. The key point here is for him, he doesn't really recognise Zelensky as a legitimate leader, and certainly not of his status.
Right.
So any direct negotiation between President Putin and President Zelensky, Prime Minister Zelensky, I think is unconscionable for Putin. It would undermine the entire point of the war. So I think in terms of a possible route to a ceasefire, which is, you know, I think it will happen, but it's going to be difficult. I think it's got to go through Trump, because Trump is the only person of international status that Putin would even begin to deign to talk to. So I think that is the first stage.
Yeah.
I mean, we've seen, as I say, Putin was meant to turn up to Istanbul. He didn't turn up. That was predicted. He didn't turn up. So I think that's where we are. The danger, of course, is that Putin is brilliant at playing other leaders. And is he playing Trump again? Trump seems to have learned from earlier on this year. Yeah. That, I think, is the question.
I guess, yeah. And also the other question is Vladimir Putin really going to be willing to give up anything when it comes to what he wants? He basically doesn't want Ukraine to exist, does he? And he certainly doesn't think that Ukraine should have Crimea. He certainly doesn't think that Ukraine should have other parts of what were the former Soviet Union. So, absolutely. I mean, he doesn't really. It's not in his interest to give anything up, is it?
No, and I mean, frankly, and militarily, this is realistic, and this is where, you know, we might criticise the Trump administration, but the judgment of Trump and J.D. Vance earlier on this year that realistically, militarily, Ukraine are not going to take back the territory that they they've lost to Russia and lost illegally. So I don't think that would be on the table at all. The bit that's really difficult, and in fact totally intolerable for the Ukrainians, is those requirements that Putin's putting down of effectively Ukrainian disarmament, which undermines any possibility of future Ukraine security. And of course, Zelensky and his colleagues are saying, well, there's no guarantee that Russia wouldn't reinvade. Exactly. So Ukraine, if they're not going to be part of NATO, which they're not going to be, they need a military force that's capable of deterring Russia. And that's exactly what Putin is refusing them to allow. So there's the actual movement to a ceasefire and to a peace is difficult. And Putin is leveraging as much as he can. And of course he's going to leverage as much as he can. He's lost 1 million soldiers dead and wounded there. And, he's proved himself to be a tough and Machiavellian leader. So those negotiations are going to be difficult, both in the status terms and in the material conditions that he's going to be willing to accept. And the fact is, what he also knows is the Ukrainians are losing less troops a day than he is. He's losing large numbers of troops. But frankly, it doesn't. He and his generals don't care, and it's quite clear. I mean, it's quite a remarkable fact. But Russian society and its satellites seem to be able to take these casualties in a way that Ukraine and indeed a Western democracy couldn't get close to taking.
Absolutely. Let's just move our focus onto Gaza for a moment. Have a look at this. This is Keir Starmer, who did a big interview with Channel 5 News that kind of went below the radar the other day. Here he is talking about Palestine.
Final question on the situation in Gaza, because there's people inside your own party who are saying that potentially recognising a Palestinian state gives Hamas a huge PR boost. Could you, one of the suggestions is, say, that will only ever happen if all the hostages are released.
Let me be really clear on my position on Hamas. They're a terrorist organisation. They should release the hostages straight away, and they should play absolutely no part in the governance of Palestine at any point.
But then by recognising that state, surely that...
No, this is a really important point, because this is nothing to do with recognition. That is my strong view, whatever the position on recognition. And we need to be really clear, this isn't a conditional issue. Obviously, we will assess in September where we've got to on the issues that matter most on recognition. But in calling out Hamas from the very get-go, I've been very clear in my mind on Hamas.
I mean, he hasn't been very clear at all about Hamas, because when he said he was going to recognise Palestine in September, if in fact it happens at the UN, he would only do it if there were certain conditions not met by Israel. And, you know, the whole thing is a mess, and he, I have to say, Anthony, seems to have made it even more confusing in the region as a result.
Yeah, I mean, you know, notwithstanding the previous discussions and criticism and stuff, actually, I mean, I'm actually a little bit more sympathetic to his view. I mean, the fact is that, you know, Israel, the international community, the US are not going to accept Hamas in any subsequent government in Gaza.
No, and neither should they.
Or in the occupied territories. No, quite. So... And in a way, this entire the political part of the war in Gaza, this has been the issue. What is the follow-on regime to Hamas? And some of the difficulty, not all of the difficulty, but some of the confused Israeli military strategy is that there is no obvious, plausible, united Palestinian partner that could form a state in Gaza and or the occupied territory. So, you know, I take your criticism totally, and I take certain criticism, but I think that line on Hamas itself, it's, you know, no state would tolerate an organisation which had committed the kind of outrages, and remember also the previous 10 years of recurrent rocket attacks, which had initiated wars with Israel from 2008, 2012, 2013, 2015, 2021. You know, no state's gonna agree with that. The problem is, as I say, and this decision of Netanyahu to reignite the war and expand its military aims, to me, it's a response to the fact that, one, he hasn't got enough troops to actually clear and hold Gaza and set up a political statement. But the other point is, the Palestinians are so divided there with different tribal groups, different political parties. It's quite difficult to see the result. And I am a little bit sympathetic to Starmer on this point, I must admit.
OK. Professor Anthony King, good to talk to you. Thanks very much indeed. Chair of War Studies, University of Essex, and advisor to the armed forces, of course, as well. This is on the news that Israel's Security Cabinet has approved an operation to take military control of Gaza City. So it's going to get a lot more bloody before the end of the month. I can see that. Benjamin Netanyahu's office has said they will basically agree a full security takeover of Gaza in order to end the war. And I would, for one, wish them luck with that, to be honest. Let's get a voice note from Matt.
Mike, Matt in Hove here. So this one-in, one-out scheme that the lying, two-faced, two-tier turnip has come up with is such a load of rubbish. There's no out. It's just in. It's the same number. If I took the rubbish out and put it in the bins outside, and my neighbour went and picked his rubbish up in the black bag and brought it upstairs and put it in the bin, and my wife come home and looked in the bin, she wouldn't say, "Oh, darling, thanks for taking the rubbish out." She'd say, "Why haven't you taken it out? It's still there." It's the same number. There's no out. It's just in. It's in. Absolute dross.
Exactly right, Matt. Thank you very much indeed. Also, it's like not only your neighbour bringing your rubbish into the bin, but it's also everybody in your street dumping their rubbish in your garden. That's basically what the one-in, one-out thing looks like. You might take one of your bags out, but you get 17 other bags coming in. That's what it is. And then at the end of it, the bin men turn up and they take your bag that you put out on the street and they put it back in your garden. So you've actually got 18 in and none out. It's ridiculous. Coming up, we're going to talk about a big weekend of protests coming up because 3 top hotels have been identified in Bournemouth. Front page of the Sun today saying that there's 3 hotels now, not 1, not 2, 3 migrant hotels in Bournemouth. And basically, Keir Starmer has been accused of gaslighting the British public for making what's called grossly exaggerated claims about the new one-in, one-out migrant deal, because everybody knows what's going on. Look at that number, 48,833 since Keir Starmer became Prime Minister. And if you don't think that's actually really roundable up to 50,000, I've got some swampland to sell you somewhere down near Brighton. This is Talk.
A lot of your viewers are going to be older people. They're going to be people with pensions. They're going to be people that are very focused on that side of things. And you might think, well, you know, we've got it hard too. There's lots of talk now about taxing pensions and things like that. But what older viewers need to understand is their state pension isn't held in some gold-plated pot somewhere. Their state pension is paid by young people working today. Okay, so the taxes that young people like me pay your pension directly in the near term. Okay.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 7:52. I'm Mike Graham with you all the way through, of course, until 10 o'clock. As for the online safety bill, says Michelle, I have a child, I tested it, and I was able to go on 3 different porn websites and watch a video. More BS. Congratulations, Michelle. A bit early for that sort of behaviour. But anyway, Joanna from Salisbury. Hi, Mike. So this excitement for people with mortgages, £20 a month better off per £100,000 when their 5-year term runs out. Their food bill has gone up more than £26 a month, now at 4%, but that's more. Our council tax is going up at least 5% on income tax in the autumn, but we're supposed to be so excited because the government says that they've dropped interest rates 5 times. Yeah, exactly. It's not really making any sense to me. We're going to speak now to Councillor Gwen Robinson, Conservative in Waterlooville. We've got a bunch of protests going on this weekend, coming up in Aldershot, in Altrincham, in Birmingham, in Bournemouth, in Chichester, in Epping, in Norwich, in Portsmouth, in Southampton, in Wolverhampton. There's probably loads of other ones as well. So if you've got one that's not on that list that you're planning to do, there's probably going to be some in London. Diss in Norfolk might still be going on. There was one in Hoylake going on at the weekend last time as well. So do let us know know what other protests are going on around the country, but there's going to be loads of them. And down in Waterlooville, of course, they were protesting just about a week ago, maybe a bit longer, about a selection of flats that were thought to be being given out to migrants. Let's get a quick voice note from John.
Morning, Mike. John from West Yorkshire. This one in, one out thing, so that they come in by a legal manner, or the people who are slightly more acceptable than others. All it means is that that one that comes back in, whatever it is, will come back in by plane or some other means, by ferry. So the same people will actually come across, but it'll change the optics, because we're not looking at people coming in by ferry. We're only worried, apparently, about the people who are coming by boats. So exactly the same number of people. It just gives them a legitimacy to get a ferry or a plane.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. The problem is it's almost insurmountable in the way that they are going to have problems dealing with it. But the trouble is, people are getting sick to the back teeth of being lied to. You know, when Keir Starmer comes out and says, when I said I would stop people coming in on small boats, I meant it. Doesn't mean anything. It's rubbish. Let's talk to Gwen Robinson, councillor in Waterlooville. Gwen, very good morning to you.
And to you, Mike. Thank you for having me on your show.
Not at all. Good to see you. A lot of protests going on this weekend. We saw, obviously, the protests in Waterlooville, I guess it was last week, back end of last week. A lot of people very, very worked up. Is there likely to be something similar going on this weekend, do you think?
There is actually, I think there's one planned for next Wednesday.
Okay.
I don't know if you're aware, Mike, I mean, at the moment, we've done the consultation and we're just waiting for a decision. I'm not very hopeful that it will be a decision I want, taking into account the leader of the council's response. Basically, he's like more interested in how they're going to be supported and the fire wrecks. So I'm really not very happy at the moment that his submission for the consultation is pretty much saying, you might just as well give them the keys and say, you know, where you go, in you go there. It's just outrageous.
Yeah, it really is. And for people who don't know, Gwen, the story is about a sort of a new build block of flats, right, which is going to be earmarked for migrants to move into. I mean, are you even being told exactly who these migrants are, where they've come from, whether they're families, whether they're single men? Do you know?
The information that I was given was that it was 35 men, and that, you know, that in these flats they would have to be related. So it was a bit of a strange one. They have to be related. They
all have to be related to each other.
No. In each flat, there's like 2-bed flats.
Okay.
That they had to be brothers, couples, or an adult and a child.
Right.
Suddenly, the leader of the council is now saying, "Oh yes, there's going to be families." That's like, families gives a different picture, Mike. But the information I had from the Home Office was that it was 35 males. No, we don't know where they're from. You know, my argument as well, and I keep asking this question to the leader and others at the council, you know, is at what point would the residents have been told that this was planned for Waterlooville?
Right.
Because this was kept very much under the radar.
Yes, and it was discovered, was it not, I think, by some very capable people like yourself who've actually found out what was going on. But surely you deserve, as a councillor, and certainly the public of Waterlooville deserve to know who these people are, where they've come from, what they might have done in the past, you know, whether they've got a criminal record. You know, surely that's important information, isn't it?
Yeah, and that's my argument. I mean, I've also added to the submission. I've put in a submission as I can to the consultation, explaining exactly why this placement is just not appropriate. And again, you know, I've said they're undocumented, they're unvetted, and they're uninvited. You know, but when you've got, you know, a Lib Dem councillor who has an outburst at full council and says, "I'm fed up with people calling these people illegal." Well, Mike, what are they?
Well, they are illegal. Well, even Keir Starmer's come around to that. You know, he stopped calling them irregular. He started to call them illegal, and he's starting to supposedly detain them as they come in. So, you know, I think we deserve to know precisely who these people are. If they, you don't even know what their status is, right? I mean, are they in the process of claiming asylum? Have they been given asylum? Have they been given right to remain? You know, what's going on?
Yeah, I mean, you know, what the council is putting out is that they're not illegal, they're supported. Now, that is gaslighting, I believe, our residents, because what supported means, Mike, is on Section 95, which is supported migrants, it means they get accommodation, they get financial assistance, they get medical, so eyes and teeth, but also, in some instances, they get free childcare as well.
Right.
So that is what supported means. It doesn't mean that they're not illegal.
Right. No, of course not. That's a completely different argument. And they're coming presumably from a hotel setting, right, where they're being fed and they're given everything that they need to have for free. So when they get moved into, say, accommodation like in Waterlooville in a flat, you know, how are they supposed to buy their food? Are they going to get? They're presumably going to be given money to buy food.
Yeah, they do. I think when they're in self-catering, I think they get more money than when they're in like hotels or whatever. But of course, you know, I mean, they'll probably go en masse to the local supermarket. You know, but the other point as well, where I don't know if you noticed from the what you've shown there, that for me, what was really interesting, I went down there, the demographic, so the range of people that were there was from families. So I saw couples with their children, and then I saw people in their 80s who were there with their Zimmer frames. They just wanted their, you know, voices heard. And a lot of the residents in Waterlooville is a lovely place, but we still have problems. You know, people in the north think if you live in the south, everything's great. It's not. We still have problems of people homeless. You know, the numbers we've got on the housing register are quite large for a small borough. And we also have people who are struggling to pay their bills and feed their families. And these people breeze in and they've got no concern about how they pay their bills. Do you know, were they, you know, these people going to be cold in the winter? I bet they're not.
No, of course not. No, because they're getting everything handed to them on a plate. It's absolutely outrageous. Councillor Gwen Robinson, thank you so much for talking to us. She's a Conservative councillor in Waterlooville down in Hampshire, not far from Portsmouth there, where there's going to be probably, at the very least, protest next Wednesday, but there may well be something over the weekend as well. This is happening all over the country. People are sick to death of it. We're back after the news.
I can announce this government will begin the biggest sustained increase in defence spending since the end of the Cold War. We will deliver our commitment to spend 2.5% of GDP on defence, but we will bring it forward so we reach that level in 2027.
The answer from European capitals has been as resounding as it is clear. We are in an era of rearmament to respond to the short-term urgency to act and to support Ukraine, but also to address the long-term need to take on more responsibility for our own European security.
On Saturday, we also agreed a new £2.2 billion loan for Ukraine, backed not by the British taxpayer, but by the profits from frozen Russian assets. It is my pleasure to bring from His Majesty the King a letter. He sent his best wishes and his regards, of course, but he also asked me to bear this letter and bring it to you. So can I present the letter from the King to you?
Thank you very much. Am I supposed to read it right now?
Yeah, please do.
I will do.
I've got to tell him what your reaction is, so I need to know. I need to know.
He is a great gentleman. A great, great gentleman. He said he thinks the war's going to go on for a long time, and he better not be right. Well, I just think he should be more appreciative, because this country has stuck with them through thick and thin. We've given them much more than Europe, and Europe should have given more than us, because as you know, that's right there, that's the border.
What kind of diplomacy, JD, you are speaking about? What do you mean?
I'm talking about the kind of diplomacy that's going to end the destruction of your country.
Yes, but if you are not
Mr. President, with respect, I think it's disrespectful for you to come into the Oval Office and try to litigate this in front of the American media.
You're gambling with the lives of millions of people. You're gambling with World War III. You're gambling with World War III.
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. It's coming up to 4 minutes past 8. It is a beautiful morning out there. It's Friday, August the 8th, ladies and gentlemen. It's school holidays, of course, so you might be having a bit of a lie-in. You might just be letting the kids wander about on their own in the house while you decide to have a cup of tea in bed. Very good if you do that. Well done. We've got lots to talk about. John Rentoul's coming up in the next hour, chief political commentator at The Independent, of course. I'll be putting a few stories to him. To wit, the Minister for Hypocrisy forced to quit this morning. This is, of course, Rushanara Ali, accused of staggering hypocrisy. She was the homelessness minister. I didn't even know we had one of them, but she's been kicked out, basically, because she made some people homeless. And that wasn't really part of the brief. She was meant to actually stop people from being homeless, but instead she's contributed to people becoming homeless. She kicked out some tenants from a house that she owns in London, which rents apparently now for £4,000 a month. Quite a pretty penny, you would have to say. It's even more than I pay. And I haven't got a big house either. But apparently, here's what she did. She did what Labour would like to make illegal. She decided to kick some tenants out back end of last year in order to put more tenants in who would pay more money. Because as soon as she kicked out the ones that were in there, she raised the whole business by £700 a month, and then re-rented it out to some other people. Very shortly, that will be an illegal thing to do. Here's what she had to say a bit earlier on when she was talking about homelessness.
We are taking action to tackle the root causes of rough sleeping and homelessness.
Yeah, we're taking action on homelessness. We're making people more homeless. Brilliant. Absolutely fantastic. Just the latest in a long line of embarrassments for Keir Starmer. Yet another minister bites the dust. Yet another minister is accused of hypocrisy. Hot on the heels of Tulip Sadiq. Hot on the heels of Louise Haigh, who, of course, was the former Transport Secretary, who turned out to have been a convicted fraudster. Tulip Sadiq, the corruption minister, of course, had to go because she's under investigation for, you guessed it, corruption. Let's get a voice note from Paul.
Happy birthday for tomorrow, Mike. It's my son's birthday tomorrow. He's 4. I don't know if you're having a Spider-Man party, but we are. Have a good one, mates.
Thank you very much indeed, Paul. Very kind. Single-sex spaces off limits to trans women is what it says on the front page of the Times. And the Sun goes with 3 hotels, not 1, not 2, but 3 hotels now in Bournemouth housing migrants. Asylum seasiders is what it says. Yesterday, the Home Office said that they made their first detentions of small boat arrivals under the controversial one-in, one-out policy. The scheme with France, which, of course, is nothing like one-in, one-out. You might as well call it, you know, Troubadour or The Wizard of Oz or, you know, I don't know, Heathcliff. Call it anything you like. It's certainly not one in, one out. It makes no sense at all. This is, of course, Morning Glory. We're going to be telling you why coffee is costing even more money and you're getting less for your money. And there was a plot to kill Prince Andrew, apparently, as well. And it didn't come from his own family. 0344 499 1000 is the number. This, of course, is the home of common sense. It's Morning Glory. Let's get it on. We're also hot on the heels of the Bank of England lowering interest rates once more, 0.25% down to 4%, which a lot of economists have said it was the wrong thing to do because actually inflation is going in the opposite direction and it's going to end up putting us into a very bad place economically, it has to be said. A couple of quick texts for you. Gary says, Mike, so the Bank of England has cut interest rates again because they're worried about the dire state of the labour market and a continuation of poor economic growth, and our Chancellor of the Exchequer is actually boasting about delivering cheaper mortgages. That's the level of incompetence we're dealing with this woman. And one from Adam in Chester. I would like people to do their job again. Forget one in, one out. Let's start with deporting all the foreign students that have outstayed their studying visas. We are sinking. We can't keep letting people on our lifeboat. We need millions out and none in. Charity begins at home. I suspect this is a sentiment shared by many. I'm sure it is. Let's talk to John Rentoul, Chief Political Commentator at The Independent. Breaking news, by the way, it's just before we talk to John. Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer has said the Israeli government's decision to further escalate its offensive and take over Gaza City is, in his words, wrong, and we urge it to reconsider immediately. You'd think after his last intervention in the Middle East, he might keep his trap shut, because he seems to have empowered Hamas the last time he said anything. But anyway, there we are. John Rentoul's here. John, very good morning to you.
Good morning, Mike.
How are you this morning? There's lots to talk about.
There is.
As ever. I mean, we're supposed to be in the doldrums.
And it's a lovely day, Mark.
It is a beautiful day, and we're supposed to be in the doldrums of August, and, you know, there's not supposed to be much news, but there's quite a lot of it, really. I mean, shall we kick off with the Minister for Homelessness, who now appears to be jobless?
Yeah. I mean, as everyone has pointed out, I mean, the problem is the hypocrisy.
Yeah.
That she did what Labour want to make illegal, which is saying, which is putting up your rent if you want to sell your house and then can't sell it. Or
right. Well, that's what I mean, her story is that she wanted to sell the house, so she wanted to move the tenants out, which maybe is believable, but unfortunately for her, she didn't then sell the house. She must be one of the few people in London who hasn't been able to sell a house. And she then hikes the price by 700 quid and puts some more tenants in.
Well, yes, and she says she didn't kick them out. She offered them a rolling tenancy until the property was sold. They refused and then moved out. I mean, I assume that she is telling the truth about that.
Well, the Mail have quoted one of the tenants who basically says that she was given a 4-month notice to move out to March, and that was a final date that they had to move out by. So, and she says that it's an absolute joke. Trying to get that much money from renters is extortion. It's morally wrong that MPs can be landlords, especially in their own area. It's a conflict of interest. This is a woman who's a self-employed restaurant owner, apparently.
Well, I mean, it is a conflict of interest in the sense that, you know, if you're Minister for Housing, you shouldn't probably be a landlord. I think that's probably fair, isn't it? The problem. But I mean, as she says, I mean, she's quite right to say that she's done nothing wrong under the law as it stands. But she has done something wrong under the law as Labour want it to be.
Right.
And I think that is the problem, and that's why she had to go.
And again, it's another kind of black mark against, perhaps not necessarily Sir Keir Starmer personally, but against the whole kind of Downing Street machine. Because surely they should have asked her, if you're going to be the Minister for Homelessness, you know, would you mind awfully not making people homeless?
Well, yeah, that's a cheap line, Mike, because
no, not really.
She made 4 people homeless, but then 4 more people moved in, so the net effect was
okay. Well, she still made 4 people homeless by your own admission.
Yeah, but she's
the minister for homelessness.
She homed 4 people.
Yeah, so. I know. But it doesn't.
No. That's just a cheap line, Mike.
But it's not a cheap line. You know, it's not a cheap line. You know that's what newspapers do.
She did not add to homelessness. I mean, that is just. Well,
of course she didn't. But the point is that that's what it looks like. The point is that she evicted 4 people. You know, for all we know.
Or they evicted themselves. It's not clear.
Well, the point is that, as you say. And the reason I said that it's a black mark for Downing Street is because they should have said to her, if you're going to be the Minister for Homelessness, it would be quite a good idea if you didn't rent out any properties that you own, because it might look a bit dodgy if you suddenly evict them. I mean, that would be a conversation I would have had.
I think that's a problem. I think there is a problem in that nobody likes private landlords, and I think that's part of the problem with the Renters' Rights Act. Is that it means that nobody will want to be a private landlord.
No. And in fact, the Labour government have more or less declared war on private landlords. You know, I've spoken to a few private landlords in the last few weeks who have said, you know, we're just going to get out of the business because it's, you know, they're making it really, really difficult for us, and it's not really worthwhile anymore to be a private landlord.
They're making it difficult for good landlords as well as bad, and I think that is a problem, and they are paying a justified price for it.
Yeah, indeed. Let's move on to the other great success story of the week, the one-in, one-out policy. We've been told... in fact, let me play you the video that got put out last night by Keir Starmer on the migrant detention and return. It says here, I said, if you enter the country on a small boat, you will face detention and return. I meant it. You know, it's a bit like sort of RoboCop, isn't it? Or, you know, Sylvester Stallone, I'll be back. You know, why do they bother with this kind of nonsensical, you know, fanciful crap? Because it really is. I mean, they don't need to do that, do they?
No, I've been listening to you welcoming this first step towards the policy that you want, Mike, which is or that you're.
No, it's not at all the policy that I want.
You don't have any opinions, but
no. It's not the policy I want. And I'll tell you why it's not the policy I want, because it's not a reduction in the numbers of people coming here. It's an increase.
It's the first step. It's the first.
No, it's an increase in the numbers.
No, it's not an increase.
It is.
Why is it an increase?
Well, because more people came in yesterday, right? and none of them are being sent back. One or two of them might
some of
be
them
sent back.
some of them have.
How many?
Are prepared to be sent back.
How many of them are going to be sent back? Do you know?
Well, we'll be told after they've arrived in France.
Why can't we be told now?
Well, because they don't want to reveal how few there are.
Exactly.
Obviously.
Exactly. There's probably about one or two or three, maybe.
No, so you're welcoming this first step towards actually returning people to France?
No, I'm not, because one, if they do return them to France, which is a very long shot, because they will no doubt already be speaking to human rights lawyers who are going to tell them that they can challenge this, because even Yvette Cooper has acknowledged that they can challenge it. If indeed they do that, then they won't be going anywhere, and they'll be sitting here for months and months and months.
Well, they might eventually be going back to France.
Eventually,
I mean, that's the point of the pilot.
Yeah,
scheme.
but then when if indeed they do go back to France, they'll be replaced by some other people who will be coming here anyway. So
yes,
it's
the
an
important
increase.
point, as I think I explained last time, Mike. The important point is that the French government has accepted the principle that some people can be returned to France. Now that's hugely important.
Yeah, but the principle means nothing if it doesn't actually happen. And the French have also got power over whether we send anybody back, because they can refuse to accept the people that we want to send back. And in any event, if we do send them back, they will send us somebody in return. So
yeah,
it's not...
that's all very interesting, Mike. But I mean, I don't know what your alternative is. But
well, I've told you what my alternative is before.
What?
I've told you my alternative before. It's just deport people. Deport them back to the countries of where they came from. That's what you do.
What if you can't? What if they won't? What if those countries?
You look at what Donald Trump did. That's what he did. You remember he had a flight full of people to Colombia, and the Colombian government said we will not. Hang on. The Colombian government said we will not allow that plane to land. We will not take back these people because we don't believe that we need to. Donald Trump got on the phone to them and said, "I'll tell you what. If you don't do that, then we will put sanctions on your country, and we will stop anybody from your country ever entering this country legally." And then suddenly they went, "Oh, okay, then we'll take the plane."
Well, yeah. That's what happened. That sounds great.
Well, that's what happened.
Well, yeah, but that's what happened in one instance. I mean,
no, it didn't. It happened, and they sent a load of people to El Salvador. Generally. They've sent loads of people back out. They've stopped people crossing the border in southern United States, in the Mexico, California, Texas border. There's no more people coming over, right? They stopped it because they made it impossible for people to get in that way, and that's what we need to do.
Well, we can't fly people back to Afghanistan and
why not?
Syria.
We flew them from Afghanistan to here and put them up in houses. Why can't we fly them back?
Well, because that's contrary to international law.
Oh, no, it isn't. No, it's not. Yes, Everybody knows that international law is whatever you make of it, right? It's as simple as that. International law is what you make of it.
Well, international law might be what the British civil service makes of it, and that's a problem.
So so there are people in this country who don't want that policy to be policy, but it could be done, is what I'm saying. And you asked me for my alternative. That's my alternative.
Well, no, that's very good. Right, excellent.
So now tell me how brilliant this scheme is that they can't tell us anything about, that they don't have any figures on, and that they're not sure will actually work.
I'm not saying it's brilliant. I'm saying it's the only scheme that has actually been proposed.
No, it's not. The Rwanda scheme was proposed. The Rwanda is now being used.
The Rwanda scheme had a capacity of a few hundred, Mike. You know perfectly well.
Yes, I know that. But the point is
that was not a workable.
Well, this is also only a few hundred. It's
only but this is uncapped. I mean, this is only a few hundred to start off with.
No, it's only a few hundred. Period.
No, but no, this could be expanded. The whole point
it could be. It could be
is to expand it so that we send all or nearly all of the arrivals back.
No,
if we get to that position,
John,
then they will stop coming.
No, they won't stop coming because let's face it. I mean,
if we send them all back, they will stop coming.
No, somebody said to me this week, and it was a very prescient comment actually. The people smugglers will be delighted with this new scheme because if they're sent back, they'll just come back again. They'll try again.
No, well, they won't because we'll have their fingerprints and ID. And once they've been sent back,
we've already had that.
If they try again, then they go straight back to France.
All right. Well, tell me what's different. Tell me what's different between what happened yesterday and what happened last week, right? Because what we saw was people coming off a boat, being taken into a place of recording of who they are. That's what happens anyway.
No, but this time
that already did happen.
This time, some of them were detained. And
detained how?
In a detention centre.
Where's this detention centre you speak of?
I don't know, Manston Airport, I think.
No, Manston is already used as a sort of holding area for people before they go to hotels. Manston is already overcrowded. They're not being detained in Manston. They have
they've been detained somewhere. Because
well, exactly, but why don't we know where they're being detained?
Because there's no need for that operational information.
No,
you don't want to get demonstrators outside.
Oh, so they're worried about demonstrators now. Well, everybody knows that.
I don't know.
Well, this is the point. You don't know, and I don't know. Nobody knows because this government is becoming more and more secretive with every week that passes.
No, absolute nonsense, Mike. You're just diving down the nearest rabbit hole.
No, I'm not.
This is an important principle.
So you're telling me
you can detain people.
You're telling
with
me
a view to sending them back to
but
France.
you're telling me they're being detained.
Yes.
Because the Labour government told you they're being detained. Have you got no critical faculty left, John? Where you ask the government?
You think they're not being detained? Mike?
Well, no, I don't think that. I don't think they're being. I don't
think all that video was just for fun, and they've just been told to mind how you go.
The video shows me. The video shows me they're sitting in a room somewhere. If I want to see somebody detained, I'd like to see them being locked in a room with bars on it. Right? That's detention to me. Being told to sit in a room with coffee and donuts is not being detained.
They're being detained. They're going to be processed.
But you don't know where.
And the aim is to send them back to France.
Yeah, but you don't know where they're being detained.
You should be welcoming that first step.
Because even if they are sent back, they will be replaced by more people coming in, which means that on balance we have got a bigger population than we had yesterday.
No, they won't be replaced. No.
Yes, they will. It's one in, one out.
One out. That means we have the same population. But the whole point.
No, it's not the same. They've just. All right. Let me do this for you. Let me
finish this point, Mike.
All right.
The whole point of this scheme is that it can be expanded, and if you can expand it to send all or nearly all arrivals back to France,
let me just.
They will stop coming.
No, they won't.
The scheme will have succeeded, and you will praise the government to the skies.
No.
I'm sure on this programme.
If you actually think that I will praise this government to the skies, then I'm afraid you've lost the plot even more than I thought you had. But here's the thing.
No, you're just revealing your bias then.
No, well, of course I'm biased.
Succeeds,
I'm biased against useless, hopeless government, right? Here's the thing. You say that we haven't got an increase in the population. These people who are coming in that we're watching now, right? Let's say there's 40 of them. I don't know how many exactly are coming in that particular sequence, right? Let's say there's 40 of them, right? The government have acknowledged that only about less than a tenth of those people will be sent back, okay? So let's call it 4, okay? So if 4 of those people get sent back, right, 36 of those people are allowed into the country. That's an increase of 36 people in the population. The other 4 who go back are then going to be replaced by another 4. So that means that you've got 40 more people in the country than you had yesterday.
No,
agreed,
but the
right?
scheme... No, but the pilot...
But isn't that true?
Yeah, of course it is.
Yes,
that's why.
the population has gone up.
That is the point of the scheme: is to try to stop the boats coming.
Yes, but it's not going to.
The pilot scheme does not increase the number of people who are coming.
Yes, it does.
No, it doesn't. The pilot scheme has no effect on the number of people who are coming, as you rightly point out.
So in fact, it doesn't work
yet.
So it doesn't work.
The point about a pilot scheme is to establish the principle that you can detain these people and send them back to France. Now, once that is up and running, and if that number can be increased so that all or nearly all are returned, the boats will stop coming, and at that point,
we're not even anywhere near sending a tenth of them back, never mind sending 100% of them back.
Of course not, because it's a pilot scheme, Mike. It takes time to build up.
Well, the pilot scheme runs
the government has moved rather quickly since President Macron agreed to the principle.
Well, you say they've moved
some
quickly.
People can be returned to France.
You've said they've moved quickly, okay? They haven't actually done anything yet. Nothing's changed.
They have. They've actually detained some people.
Well, you say they've detained them, but we don't know where they've detained them.
Well, so that doesn't matter.
Of course it does. Because
you're only interested in whether they end up back in France or not.
No, I'm interested in where they're being detained, and the government won't tell us.
Why?
Because I want to know that something has changed. I don't believe anything has changed, right? I believe that everything is the same because they have a two-tier.
You sound like Theresa May.
They have a two-tier system. Well, luckily I don't look like her. The thing is that they come into Dover. They get put into a holding place which is between Dover and Manston. They then get put into Manston and they then get moved out into a hotel. As far as I'm concerned, I don't think that's changed, and I think they're trying to make it look like they're trying to make it look like they're being detained somewhere else. I don't think they are.
What has changed is that President Macron has agreed to the principle.
That doesn't matter.
That we can return some of these people to France. Now that is a huge change.
No, but it hasn't happened. Therefore, it doesn't matter.
Well, when it happens, you'll be praising it, I'm sure.
No, no, it won't be, because it won't make any difference, because they'll send some more people over. And by the way, the French are under no obligation to tell us anything about the people they send us. So they won't tell us whether they've got criminal records or whether they're terrorists or whether they're dodgy people. We won't know any of that. So how's it an improvement?
If we can send all or nearly all of arrivals back to France, the boats will stop, and at that point you will be
well, I mean, yeah,
so that'll be good.
That's a very big
but
if.
I agree. It's
a
unlikely
very big
to happen.
if.
It's a very difficult and complicated policy. I think the French. It's surprising that the French agreed to the principle of returns.
Well, they agreed to it because it's never going to happen.
Well, yeah, well,
that's why. You know, come on, you know, you've been around the block.
In
John,
which case, in a year's time,
John,
we can have this again.
We will. You know as well as I do.
You told me it was never going to work.
This is all performative nonsense. None of it is going to make any difference.
Well, no, I mean performative nonsense. I mean you're implying somehow that Keir Starmer's not trying. Keir Starmer's absolutely desperate for this to work.
No, he's not.
He knows perfectly well that he's out on his ear if he doesn't make it work.
But in his heart of hearts, he wants to believe.
Just the same as with the Tory government before, Rishi Sunak was absolutely desperate for it to work because he could see the election defeat coming. He couldn't make it work. Keir Starmer's made one tiny bit of progress, which is he's got the French to agree to the principle of returns. Now, I think that is progress.
No, it's only progress in the unreal world of Westminster politics. In the real world, no, in the real world where people actually.
You've actually seen the video, Mike.
Well, you think that's a good video?
Well, yeah, that's progress.
It's really not. I mean, if you're taken in by that, I'm sorry for you. People listening to this show, watching this show, are looking at that and going, what on earth do they think we are? Do they think we're stupid? This is exactly what they did 2 weeks ago. They get people walking off a boat, they walk into a room, they get fingerprinted, they get questioned, they get their clothes taken off them, they get given new clothes, and they get told, now you're going to go to another room, and before we're going to send you off to a hotel. There's nothing in that video that tells me that anything has changed. Nothing.
Well, there is, which is that the French have signed a treaty which allows us to send
but again, John, people don't care about the treaty because it doesn't mean anything. It won't happen.
It might mean something.
Well, it might mean something.
Once those people start going back to France, then that is meaningful.
Well, that's like saying you might get the Beatles back together.
No, it's not.
Two of them are dead. It's not going to happen.
This is a workable scheme that is lawful, unlike your idea of flying people around the world and landing them on governments that
Well, hang on a minute. This wasn't lawful when the Tories were in. This wasn't lawful. It's now lawful because the Labour Party are in, and they've managed to...
No, it's now lawful because President Macron has agreed to take returns back to France.
But that's not
he hadn't agreed with Rishi Sunak. Rishi Sunak tried to get that agreement.
Rishi Sunak didn't ask him, but the point is...
Yes, he did. Yes, Rishi Sunak was desperately begging him to take these
Rishi
people back.
Sunak's, yeah.
And Macron said no.
And why do you think it's different now?
Well, because Macron said yes.
Yeah, but why did he say yes?
I don't know. He wants to be helpful to Keir Starmer.
So the reason that he said no to Rishi Sunak was because he didn't like him because he was Conservative. Is that it?
I've got no idea.
Why has he suddenly changed his mind?
Well, maybe Keir Starmer was very persuasive.
Oh, really? Well, I don't want to get into that sort of territory.
His skill at international negotiations.
Well, it would be the first international negotiation he's been any good at, because he's not any good at any of the rest of them. I mean, for God's sake.
He's got a trade deal with India. He got the trade deal with Donald Trump.
With all that.
He saved us from American terrorists.
Don't start with all that.
You should be praising him to the skies.
Yeah, well, I'll leave that to you, John, because, there's only one room for one deluded person in this particular conversation. That'd be you. But listen, good to talk to you. Thank you very much. John Rentoul, Chief Political Commentator at The Independent. Han from Newcastle says, I totally agree, Mike, that one in, one out is a lie. It gives a false picture and therefore, to me, is against advertising laws. Exactly right. John in Blackpool. Morning, Mike. With more and more hotels converting to migrant accommodation, just where are the holidaymakers going to stay? Campsites? I know. It's ridiculous. Let's get a voice note from Daryl.
Morning, Mike. Very good show so far. Hilarious, really, with the irony. When I was a mechanic many years ago, we always had a bit of a thing where if we weren't sure what the problem was with the car or whatever, sometimes we had to baffle the customer with mechanical sort of like bull crap, if you like, and coming out with all the nonsense words just to try and make out that we knew what we were talking about. This scheme by the government sounds a lot like that. it seems like that they're trying to baffle the public with, and also they're trying to baffle the migrants with it as well. Of course, the migrants will just totally ignore it.
Of course they will. Absolutely right. Meanwhile, Andrew Neil tweeted this out just recently. I guess Labour likening Nigel Farage to Jimmy Savile isn't really working. There's a new poll out, Westminster voting intention. Reform now 12 points ahead. Tories just above extinction level. It's got Reform on 32%, Labour on 20%, Conservatives on 16%, Lib Dems on 12%, the Greens on 9%, the SNP on 2%. Crikey. You know, it's unbelievable how good Reform are doing at the moment. Let's have a listen to what Yvette Cooper said yesterday about this pilot scheme.
Pilot has now begun, and the first migrants who arrived on small boat are now in detention. That is the first step to removing them to France, because no one should be making this journey in the first place, and that's why this is now starting the process to return people and to undermine this vile trade in people.
You won't say how many have been detained, though. There could be just 2 people detained yesterday. Don't the public have a right to know?
Well, we'll provide regular updates for the public at every stage. That's why I'm confirming today that the pilot has now started, and the first migrants who arrived on the small boat are now in detention. The transfers to immigration removal centres are underway as we speak, so we won't provide operational details at this point that criminal gangs can simply use and exploit.
Oh, I'm looking for an update. I haven't seen one, though, on the Yvette Cooper Twitter page. She's put some stuff from the Home Office from 14 hours ago, 23 hours ago, 2 days ago, the 29th of July. Not much of an update going on there. Can we get an update today, please, Ms Cooper? Please. I ask on behalf of my listeners and viewers, we'd like to know what the update is today. Any chance you can tell us exactly how many people have been detained and why you haven't been detaining them up to now, and where they're going to go, what they're going to do? Oh, dearie me. Coming up, we're going to talk about migrant hotels in Bournemouth. The Sun have got a great story this morning. There's not 1, not 2, but 3 migrant hotels in Bournemouth, and the city or the town is creaking under the yoke of so many of these ghastly people who are running around committing crimes all over the place. This is Talk.
During my video that you saw where they was dressed up, we discussed consent. We discussed how to choke properly, how to slap properly.
How to choke. See, when you're having conversations about how to choke properly.
But if I'm not doing that, all those people are going to watch online is a video where they've seen a girl get really roughly choked and it's not been discussed at all. So if that guy then does it to another girl who's freshly 18, how is he not going to hurt her? How does she know to speak up? So I am doing good for society, because if I wasn't doing these sex tapes that show more of the educational side, I mean, the parents aren't teaching them.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. I'm Mike Graham with you all the way through, of course, until 10 o'clock. As a child, says Lorraine. Now, I used to holiday in Bournemouth and it was a beautiful place. Recently, I revisited and was so saddened by what I found. On the beach and everywhere I went, there were large groups of single men, clearly illegal migrants, not speaking a word of English, roaming around in quite a sinister fashion. I'm not easily intimidated, but there was no way I would allow my children to play on the beach. We sadly left because we felt so uncomfortable and actually very intimidated. Well, do you know what's interesting is we've got the latest issue of The Sun in front of us here. 3 huge hotels near one of Britain's favourite beaches are being used as accommodation for asylum seekers during the peak summer holiday season. And this is from Thomas Godfrey and Julia Atherley, who's the Home Affairs correspondent at The Sun. We're going to speak to Thomas Godfrey now, but this is the latest in the Sun series of our broken borders.
Britain's broken borders from The Sun.
And as you might expect, of course, not only have The Sun done it on front page, they've got a 4/5 spread with a great headline that says, "Wish you weren't here." Pictures of Deliveroo-type bikes, people on delivering food around Bournemouth who are obviously working illegally from these hotels, the Britannia, the Roundhouse and the Chine Hotel. Let's talk now to Thomas Godfrey. Thomas, very good morning to you.
Morning, Mike.
Great story, this. Well done. Fantastic operation. 3 hotels. I mean, Bournemouth, what have they done to deserve this?
Well, I mean, all those hotels, there's about 300 rooms between them, so around 500 to 600 asylum seekers in the town. But what is really striking about these hotels is that they are all in prime tourist locations, and you'd think that at the height of the summer, at the point where 1 million people a year come to Bournemouth, the tourism board say, at the absolute peak of the school holidays, you would expect those hotels to be brimming with tourists. Instead, they've been contracted by the Home Office to house people who have arrived in Britain illegally.
Yes. And I mean, the amount of money that we're spending on these hotels obviously is off the scale. We know that it's millions and millions of pounds a day, billions of pounds a year. The government keeps saying we're going to move people out of these hotels, but there doesn't seem to be any sign that that's happening anywhere, including in Bournemouth.
No, and actually we've seen in the last few weeks there have been more hotels opened. I mean, the one in Canary Wharf is the prime example of a new migrant hotel. That's the Britannia chain's flagship hotel, and 2 of the hotels down here in Bournemouth, where I am at the moment, and to declare an interest, it is where I'm from, so I'm slightly biased in favour of it. But 2 of the hotels down here are Britannia hotels in Bournemouth, and that chain has taken on so many asylum seekers. They seem willing to throw open their doors, and instead of leaving their fortunes to the market and to holidaymakers who, by the way, still want to come down to Bournemouth, instead of capitalising on the prime business opportunity they have taken what a lot of people would say is the easy way out by leasing their hotel to the Home Office, who in the last couple of years at least have had an insatiable appetite for putting up asylum seekers in any hotel they can get their hands on, whatever the cost, seemingly.
Well, that seems to be the case. And you're right. I mean, Bournemouth and that whole sort of coastline is such a great part of the world, such a great part of Britain. You've got a great-grandmother, Susan Beecham, quoted in the piece from Cheltenham. She forked out £1,400 for a week's stay with her daughter at the Hampton by Hilton near the town centre, which is not cheap. And quite rightly, she's going, what are we supposed to do? We've paid good money to be here. These characters are just having living high on the hog and getting everything provided for free. And it looks as though, from your piece as well, that many of them are working as delivery riders on these bikes for the food companies.
That's absolutely correct. When we did our investigation at the end of June into illegal work from asylum hotels, one of the hotspots for it was Bournemouth. And yesterday, within about an hour of being outside one of these hotels, the Chine Hotel, which has had a number of protests actually in the last few weeks.
Yeah.
In an hour of being there was someone strapping a Just Eat bag to his back, climbing on a £1,000 e-bike, which is not cheap by any means. That's a hell of an investment, and going off to work, very blatantly using the hotel as a base. And the hotel has security guards who did absolutely nothing to stop him.
Right.
And it appears that he's been enabled to do that by the hotels and also in turn by the Home Office too. So It really feels, you can understand why people like Susan, who have paid a lot of money to come down in their retirement years. They've booked up a lovely hotel, would arrive and then feel there's a double standard where people who have come into the country illegally are being put up in seaside hotels for free. And some of those rooms at the Chine Hotel, I mean, that is a grade 2 listed building. It's more than 100 years old. It had Dame Vera Lynn stay there, Laurel and Hardy performing there. I mean, that is a storied hotel. It's one of the better beachfront hotels, and yet it's been allowed to fall into the hands of the Home Office for it to be used for asylum purposes. And the residents who live, there's a range of flats around there, flats that overlook the sea, that should be absolutely prime real estate, right? It's the sort of place anyone would want to live, with amazing sea views. They say they can't sell those flats. They can't sell those apartments. People turn up and ask for thousands of pounds off because it's adjacent to an asylum hotel. And that, very, very sort of frankly and blatantly, they feel is damaging to the local community.
Yeah, of course.
And it's the decision made by the government to put them there, which they are furious with.
Yeah, absolutely right. Because in addition to it, reducing the value of properties around it, you have to wonder how long people are going to be in there for. I mean, is there any clue as to how long the current residents of these hotels, the migrants, have actually been there for? Do they go in and sort of get moved out, or do they go in and just stay forever?
Well, we know that migrants, when they arrive, can be put into a hotel within 24 hours, generally. They don't have any control over where that hotel is in the country. You could get Birmingham, you could get London, you could get Salisbury, you could get Bournemouth, as about 500 migrants have. That hotel has been operational for more than 18 months, so it was put there under the previous government, and the current government have taken no action so far in the year they've had to close it down. It really does feel for the people who live here, the people we spoke to, that it's becoming a major problem where there are free hotels, I have to stress this, within walking distance of each other. These are not across the town as you might get in other cities. These are all very condensed. Bournemouth Town Centre is not a massive place, it is walkable, but these free hotels, which you'd assume would be in their best business month of the year, are not simply not available, and it drives up the costs, frankly, for other tourists who do want to come down, to the point where people like Susan, who have worked hard all their life, have paid their taxes, have done things the right way, and want to enjoy their retirement, now feel that they're having to pay through their front teeth £200 a night for a hotel by the seaside for a summer holiday.
Right. And we're being told by the government now that, they've got to grips with it. They've started to, detain people as they come into the country. They started yesterday, apparently. It doesn't appear to me that anything's really changed. I mean, they're taking people off boats and they're walking them through into a sort of a reception area where they're kind of supposedly fingerprinting them and getting their details and trying to work out who they are, and then detaining them, in their own words. But it doesn't look like they're doing anything different to what they were doing before.
Well, it's the first day of a pilot scheme, but what I did find bizarre was the lack of transparency, frankly, about how many people they detain. People they say are being detained, but if we don't know how many are being detained, then how can we judge if it's going to be successful or not?
Well, exactly. And this is the trouble.
reasoning that it would be useful to criminal gangs. I mean, personally, I don't see it. I think our readers can see through it. That line of reasoning, for the public to have confidence that this is going to work, for the public to get behind it and understand that, as Labour say, this might not be a waste. This might actually work. This agreement with France, the first time they've been helpful at all in facilitating the return of illegal migrants back across the Channel. I think for the public to have faith it's going to work, they need to know the numbers.
Yeah.
They need to know what's going to happen, and they need to know that these migrants who are being detained are not going to spend months and years on British shores while they make frivolous legal appeals. Many of them may have genuine cases, but you can imagine the vast majority will take any opportunity they can to stay here instead of going back to France. What are the government going to do to expedite that process to get them back across the Channel under the terms of this agreement as quickly as possible?
Yeah.
That seems currently to be a question that is difficult to answer, and the fact that that's difficult to answer, along with the question about how many people have been detained, is concerning.
Yeah.
And I think people are right to raise issues with that.
And people, as I'm sure you know, Thomas, if you're from Bournemouth, you talk to people there, you've got friends there and family, it's what people talk about now. You meet people in the street, you meet people in the pub, in a restaurant. people talk about how their city and their town is changing, and they need to know what's going to change about that and when it's going to stop.
Yeah, Bournemouth's been changing for a long time. The universities have got bigger. What was once rather crudely branded God's waiting room is now a sort of university town. But I think the fact it's free, massive hotels has really irked people.
Yeah.
And obviously, the thing I kept hearing yesterday from residents and from holidaymakers who had come down for the week or even for a day trip was that these people need to be housed somewhere, but the feeling was that it was inappropriate for these hotels on the seaside to be opened in the first place. And every day that they remain open, they get even more frustrated and angry at both governments of either party for allowing it to continue. And there was a feeling, and even though, we're a 2-hour train ride from London, there was a feeling that in these coastal towns, and you see it in other coastal towns, Hull is a great example where there are multiple migrant hotels, Carlisle, along the same lines, even Plymouth, which has a couple of migrant hotels, and Portsmouth as well, where there was a rape charge for an asylum seeker living in one of these hotels. There is a feeling among these people who live in coastal towns that they're out of sight and therefore out of mind for the government, especially for the Labour government and also for the Conservative government that opened many of these hotels. And I suppose the government argument is they allowed it to balloon to the size that it is and remains. I mean, more than 200 hotels. How anyone can justify it is beyond me.
I know. It's absolutely shocking. Thomas, great story. Thank you very much indeed for joining us, and enjoy the weekend in Bournemouth if you can. Don't go near the beach, obviously. Sun reporter Thomas Godfrey there, the great story on the front page of 3, count them, separate migrant hotels, asylum seasiders in what is a beautiful part of the world, Bournemouth. Really lovely, but people say it's been blighted, it's been changed, you can't go to the beach anymore, it's not safe. Absolutely ridiculous. Let's have a look at what people are saying in the Sun letters page.
Letters from the Sun, the page where you tell Britain what to think. For more, visit thesun.co.uk.
Colin from Worcester says this: the government is starting a one-in, one-out scheme to reduce the increasing flow of illegal migrants to the UK. Surely the only sensible way to stop the small boats is for our border force vessels to meet French escort boats mid-channel and to firmly and politely tell them to return to France. After all, the migrants were already in a safe country. Well, true. And Samuel in Lancashire, in Rishton in Lancashire: I'm deeply frustrated with the government's handling of immigration. Millions are spent daily to house migrants in hotels, while British veterans and vulnerable citizens continue to face homelessness and hardship. This is unfair and unsustainable. We need real action to stop illegal crossings and costly hotel accommodations. If the current government can't deliver, voters will look elsewhere. Well, they certainly will. Absolutely right. Coming up, we're going to talk some more about the problems for Rachel Reeves coming up in the current state of our economy. Julian Jessup, independent economist, is going to tell us why she is really heading for a financial crisis and why the Bank of England lowering interest rates yesterday was actually the wrong thing to do. Alan in Middlesbrough says this: morning, Mike. John Rentoul is either gaslighting to defend Starmer's policies, or he genuinely sees the country through a utopian lens. Crime down, London is safe, illegal immigrants are not increasing the population. I suspect the latter. Would love to live in the rental bubble. And Scuba Dave says, Mike, what the hell is wrong with John Rentoul? Will he just believe anything Keir says? If he thinks this one-in, one-out scheme will work, I will personally bet him £1,000. It will be the easiest money I've ever made. And Jill says, let's not forget Macron has been paid yet more money to do nothing. That's why he said yes to this ridiculous deal. It's true. But of course, you get people like John Rentoul who go, oh, but it's a great deal. He's managed to get an agreement with France. Yeah, but until something happens, it's not a great deal. It's a great deal of nothing. The square root of sweet FA. That's what it is. 8:47. He's 59. He doesn't look it, but he's 59.
No, so he fits. By the way, Superman, I remember the black and white edition, so I'm going to age myself, Peter, before the full color Superman films. It's interesting, though, with this Dean Cain becoming part of ICE reminded me of photographs, I don't remember it myself, of when President Nixon gave Elvis Presley a drug enforcement badge, and Presley thought that would give him more right to take drugs internationally. But
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. I'm Mike Graham, and this, of course, is the home of common sense. It's 8:51. How come all of a sudden Yvette Cooper is saying small boat, says Treacle in Bridgend? Shouldn't it be plural, as in boats, trying to make it seem like one boat a day, not several boats a day? What the hell? Interesting point. And Jan from Newcastle, just love your interviews with John Rentoul. Labour's criticism of Rwanda scheme was that it cost millions and only a small number of immigrants were going there. Is that not exactly the same as this French deal? Personally, I think this scheme is worse and is going to be less effective. Don't get me started about the lies. Yeah, I think the lies are the problem, aren't they? Absolutely right. Let's talk to Julian Jessup, independent economist. But just before that, a voice note from Adrian.
Morning, Mike. Wonderful show as always. It's Adrian from East Sussex. Starmer did say when he came into power that this was going to be a government of service. The only thing he didn't actually say is what it was going to be. It was a government of service in all the needs for these vile traffickers. I mean, we produced the reason why they want to come over here with all the generous accommodation and food and turning a blind eye to illegal working. We then actually shorten the journey by picking them up, bring them over carefully and processing them. And all this nonsense from old Cooper about we're keeping these things secret to prevent them being used by the traffickers. What? Letting the traffickers know the deterrent is working. Who do they think we are? We're not that stupid.
I know, absolutely. They do gaslight us all the time, making out that we shouldn't have any clue as to what we know, what we're doing. Julian Jessup is here, independent economist. Julian, very good morning to you.
Good morning.
Good to talk to you. I know you've got plenty to say about Rachel Reeves and the state of the economy and what happened yesterday at the Bank of England. Let's have a quick look at what Rachel Reeves said about falling interest rates.
I welcome the fact that interest rates have come down today. That's good news for homeowners, good news for businesses. And interest rates have now come down 5 times since Labour came to office, in part because of the stability that we've managed to return to the economy after the chopping and changing, the mini budget under the Conservatives and Liz Truss. And what that means, that 5th cut in interest rates, is that if you're taking out a mortgage for £215,000, you're going to be paying on a variable rate around £140 less a month than when we came to office just over a year ago. So this is good news for people wanting to get on the housing ladder, people remortgaging, and also businesses borrowing to grow.
She neglects to mention, of course, that stamp duty has gone up massively. So even if you are able to get a mortgage, which is increasingly difficult in this country, you're not actually going to be saving any money anyway. Julian.
Well, I find the whole thing maddening, particularly coming from Rachel Reeves, who used to be a Bank of England economist. There are 3 obvious things to throw back at her. One is that, yes, we've had 5 interest rate cuts in the UK since the general election, but we've had 7 in the euro area. European Central Bank has cut interest rates to just 2%. So there's a global interest rate cutting cycle, and the UK is actually lagging behind. Secondly, she refers to mortgage rates. And it's true, of course, if you're on a mortgage that's directly tied to the Bank of England's base rate, then your rate has fallen. But most people aren't on those sorts of mortgages. They're on mortgages that depend on where interest rates are expected to be over the next 2 to 5 years. And those mortgage rates have barely budged at all. Right. And in the meantime, the government's cost of borrowing has actually gone up. So a lot of the interest rates that really matter for the economy are either flat or higher under Labour than would otherwise have been. But the final and most important point is, why has the Bank of England cut interest rates? After all, on the bank's own forecasts, inflation is heading to 4%. So that's twice the official target. And that's not good news. Well, the reason they're cutting interest rates is they're so worried that Labour policies are going to tip the economy into recession because businesses are having to pay much higher taxes than they were before. So the only way that the government can claim credit for these interest rate cuts is that they're causing the economic downturn that's spooking the Monetary Policy Committee.
Right. And of course, we've got, fair, as you say, much more kind of effective and serious financial conditions going on around whatever it is that the Bank of England are doing. And I know you were saying yesterday, I think, on social media, that if you were at the Bank of England, you wouldn't have actually cut the interest rates because it's not helping the economy, particularly when inflation is going up.
That's not. I'm not quite sure where that came from. I would actually have voted for a quarter-point cut this week, as did a small majority on the Monetary Policy Committee. I think it was important to cut interest rates to provide a little bit of confidence that things are still going to be okay. I think the broader point, though, is it probably won't make a lot of difference. The markets had already priced in that interest rate cut.
Yeah.
So, if anything, actually, the markets reacted negatively to the Bank of England's relatively pessimistic forecast for inflation going ahead.
Right.
So I think the Bank of England was right to cut interest rates, but I wouldn't herald it as good news in itself because of the backdrop that's causing the bank to cut rates, namely concerns about recession, trumping fears, or the reality, in fact, of rising inflation.
Well, this is the thing. I mean, we've got stories this morning about food inflation going up, and whenever I speak about it and people tell people it's running around about 4%, people always say to me, well, if you go into the shops, it's actually a hell of a lot more than 4% because, things that you used to buy, and there's pictures of some olive oil. I mean, I was hearing a guy from the Times the other day on Times Radio saying that he now, when he goes out for dinner or goes around to somebody's house for dinner, he takes a bottle of olive oil because it's actually it's so expensive. It's actually quite a nice gift to give people. The cost of that is prodigious now, and everything that you thought was only going to cost you £1 last time now costs practically £2. So the actual real rate of food inflation is probably more like 50% than it is 4%.
Well, I'm not convinced about that. There are plenty of private surveys that aren't being manipulated that show that overall food inflation is probably running at about 4 to 5%. But what you say does illustrate.
Yeah, but I don't think they're right. I think they're wrong because I mean, I don't know how much shopping you do, but every time you go to the shops, everything costs more money.
Yeah, as I say, overwhelming evidence, I'm afraid that's simply not true. Of course, you always pick individual items like olive oil and coffee and cocoa where the prices have risen significantly, mainly because of global factors. But overall food price inflation, I think, genuinely is running about 4 to 5%. But the broader point, and you're right to flag this up, is that these are prices that people are particularly aware of. Because, of course, we all do a weekly shop or more often, 2 or 3 times a week. So people are particularly sensitive to higher food prices. And of course, also, if you're on a relatively low income, you probably spend more on food than you do if you are on higher incomes. So higher food inflation has a disproportionate impact on the less well-off in society. So I think it is very right to be concerned about food price inflation. But of course, it's nothing that the Bank of England can do about that. The Bank of England can't set interest rates to control food inflation because the problem is driven by costs, not by demand.
Well, it is,
but I don't think should be raising interest rates. Indeed, it should continue to be cutting them, even though food price inflation is too high.
Well, this is the thing. I mean, there's a story in the Sun today about the cost of Nescafe Original, right? Instant coffee, same with its decaf alternative. Data from retail insights firm Trolley. Jars were being flogged for £4.50 in July last year. The same jar, which is actually marginally smaller, is gone up by 55% and is now selling for £7. Well, so when you've got things like that happening, and this is instant coffee, this is not a luxury item. This is something that people buy. Even if you're only buying, 7 or 8 things every single week, if one of those things has gone up by 55%, how on earth do you get to a 4% level?
Well, I would start by looking at the breakdown of the official inflation numbers. They do show big increases in individual food prices, including coffee and cocoa and so on. But that's offset by smaller increases and in some cases falls.
Yeah, but in order to offset 55%, Julian, I mean, you know better than I do about numbers. In order to offset 55%, you'd have to have things going down in price to get back to 4, wouldn't you?
Okay, well, how about this? I'll write something on social media, on X later, looking at the breakdown of the official inflation numbers, and I think they are right. There's one additional factor, by the way, to take account of, is that a lot of times, of course, there are also discounts available which aren't reflected in the official numbers. So that's one way in which the official numbers might actually be overstating food price inflation.
Well, I don't know. We may have to argue about this for over a longer time, over a pint of very expensive beer. Julian, good to see you. Thank you very much indeed, independent economist. We've got much more to do coming up in the next hour. We've got loads.
Five, 4, 3, 2, 1. Yay!
8722, start your message with the word talk. Who would you send to space and why?
The person I would love to send to space would be Mr. Keir Starmer. And then I would tell the Galactic Empire that he was part of the Rebel Alliance and let them blow him away with the Death Star. No Brits was involved, no fingers could be pointed.
You carry on taking the medication, George. Yes, I'd send all the Labour government to space with a one-way ticket and throw in the SNP for being useless. They're all a bunch of... Oh, all right, fair enough.
One person, quite frankly, I think needs to go to space in a one-way journey is Jeremy Kyle. If he goes on about his age one more time, how he's 60 this year, he was 59 last year, repetitively over the course of the weeks and months, we have to hear him, I'm 60 this year, I'm 60 this year.
Richard Tice, did you put that cheeky bugger up to that?
I'm hoping he's going to send me the invoice because that was absolutely brilliant.
Which MP would you send to space?
Although I'll get in terrible trouble if I answer that. But it's fair to say there's quite a long list.
The sad thing is about sending people into space on a one-way ticket is I don't think that we've built a spaceship big enough to take the lunatics off this planet. I mean, from the net zero loonies to the transgender loonies to the racists to the terrorists, there is just so many to the wokerati. We need some big spaceships.
Big spaceships.
Good evening. I never know how you're going to start this conversation, Jeremy.
Katy Perry went to space today, OK? Who would you send... I'd love her to say what I wanted to, but I'd never disrespect her. Who would you send to space who could never come back?
Well, I'd be happy to send Ed Miliband to space, I think.
Oh, that is an outrageous question, so I'm not even going to answer that question.
Sam Matterface, do you get the job, yeah? Come on.
No, Sam Matterface, I tell you what... There's no.
I think David Lammy would be the person I'd want to send up in space and never come back again.
Yeah, the problem is how much would the bill be for him to munch through whatever food on the way there?
Hey, it worked.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. We're into the final hour of the show. Unbelievable. I don't know where it's gone. It's Friday, of course, coming up to 4 minutes past 9. It is the 8th of August. It is, of course, the day before my birthday, so, you know, we're celebrating a little bit here. But there's no drink or anything involved, unfortunately. A bit too early for that. But there will be, I'm sure, later on. Lots and lots of you have got lots to say about all manner of things, including, of course, the big story on the front page of The Sun, asylum seasiders. Not one, not two, but three asylum hotels for migrants in Bournemouth, which are holding approximately 1,000 people, 1,000 young men, all roaming the streets, roaming the beaches, making the city and the town a pretty nasty and dangerous place to be. The holidaymakers in Bournemouth forking out thousands of pounds to go there for their own sort of holidays. A beautiful beach down there, Black Gang Shine and all that kind of thing. I mean, absolutely brilliant. No, Black Gang Shine's in the Isle of Wight, isn't it? No, there is another Shine there, sorry. There's a Shine Hotel as well, that's what it is. But people paying loads and loads of money to go to Bournemouth, have a nice holiday with their family, finding themselves being marauded by these people hanging around, smoking drugs, riding around on Deliveroo bikes and all the rest of it, having a fantastic time, all on the taxpayer's dollar. Thanks very much indeed. Yesterday, the Home Office, of course, say that they made their first detentions of people who came on small boats. They won't tell us how many people they've detained, and they won't tell us exactly where they're actually detaining them. And they also won't tell us precisely when these people will be sent back to France. And if so, how soon it will be before the other people who replace them will be sent back the other way to come and live here. The whole thing is a complete and utter mess. Absolutely ridiculous. Shall we get a voice note from Darren?
Morning, Mike. Darren from Suffolk. Great show as ever. Another day in paradise. I'm imagining that first phone call from Macron to Starmer. Ooh la la, Turkey. We've got the 50 lined up, ready to go back on the boat you send over today. Or fixing the foundations. We have a problem. We have a problem, Macron. Everybody has claimed asylum. We can't send them over. So can you hold on to the 50? No, too dare. We can't hold on to the 50. I don't know where these accents are going.
Yeah. I mean, I've never heard Emmanuel Macron sounding Japanese before, but you certainly managed to do it. Darren, well done. Thank you very much indeed. Coming up, Kevin Hollinrake's here, MP for the Conservative Party, also Conservative Party chairman as well. David Wooding, journalist and political commentator, former editor of the Daily Express, is here as well. We'll have to talk as well, of course, about Labour's homelessness minister, who's now jobless. A woman by the name of Rushanara Ali, who I'd never heard of until yesterday, has been accused of staggering hypocrisy. She was the homelessness minister, right? She's got a house in London, which she rented out to some people, and she decided that she was going to evict them and make them homeless, which is kind of against the policy if you're a homeless minister, isn't it? Not only did she evict them, but she evicted them in order to hike the price up of the property that she rents out. And believe it or not, she's now renting it out for £4,000 a month. Not £4,000 a year, £4,000 a month in London, right? And so she's actually been accused of not just putting people out on the street when they didn't need to be put out on the street, but she would have broken the law that the Labour government wants to bring in, which makes it illegal for landlords to do exactly what she did. And that's why she's had to go. That's the latest in a long line of Labour Party ministers who have had to fall on their own sword. Louise Haigh, remember her? She was the Secretary of State for Transport, the one with the red hair. She was put in order to supposedly bring the working class vibe to running the trains, right? Unfortunately, it turns out she was a convicted fraudster, kept having her phone nicked, even when it wasn't nicked, kept reporting it as being nicked, even reported it from the phone that was nicked. Unfortunately, got caught out. Also, of course, Tulip Siddiq, who can forget her, the corruptions minister. She was charged with corruption by the Bangladeshi government thanks to her rather sordid relationship with one of her aunties. And apparently she may have to stand trial in Bangladesh. And who can forget, of course, Rachel Reeves and the fake CV? Who can forget Jonathan Reynolds and the fake solicitor's story? For 10 years he pretended to be a solicitor. Turns out he never was one. And the front page of the Times as well. We've got single-sex spaces off limits to trans women. Finally, the NHS and schools and hospitals and leisure centres are being told you've got to find the possibility of a space for women. You can't allow trans women and who are basically men into women's spaces. So stop breaking the law. Thank you very much indeed. 0344 499 1000. We'll also be talking about a plot to kill Prince Andrew, which apparently took place shortly after the Falklands War ended. And what about fat jabs on the NHS? That's what you're going to be getting soon at this Labour government. Absolutely ridiculous. Absolute madness. This, of course, is Morning Glory. Back after this. Very helpfully, Barry has said it's alum chine in Bournemouth. That's right. Yeah, but there is one of those chines. I remember walking down. They've got a funicular railway as well, haven't they? It's very nice down there, but apparently not as nice as it used to be. Do you think the former Minister for Homelessness was taking inspiration from Starmer's one-in, one-out policy, except doing it on an industrial scale of 4 out, 4 in, says Grant in Oldham. Yeah, I don't know, but it's a good question. Why are we returning the boats and safety vests to be reused time and again? If they destroyed every vessel that came here, it would make far more expensive, wouldn't it? Says Gary in Westcliff. Yeah, that's a good point as well. And one from Jenny in Bicester. Mike, has this international agreement made with France gone through our Parliament, where every detail would be examined? If not, it is illegal. If not, is it legal under UK law? The Rwanda scheme seemingly had to do that. Yeah, it's a very good point. I really do have to ask that question. Maybe you can ask it to Kevin Hollinrake, MP, Conservative Party Chairman. Kevin, very good morning.
Morning, Mike.
Good to see you.
And you.
It's a question raised by a couple of people this week, actually. This French returns agreement was obviously made, I think, since Parliament kind of more or less went into recess. Is it not the case that Parliament should have ratified it, that Parliament should have been told about it and understood the, the whys and wherefores of it?
Well, listen, I mean, you could argue that. Personally, I would do pretty much anything to stop this problem. That's what we've got to do. And we had a solution for that. Of course, when we were in power, we got the Rwanda bill through finally. 134 times Labour voted against it. The court tried to stop us, but we got it through. And the first thing Labour do when they take over is scrap it. And that was the deterrent. That would have worked. It was working, in fact. And it would have worked much more effectively as the system got into full swing. And first thing Keir Starmer does is scrap it on some kind of moral basis. And now what's happened? The numbers of crossings are up 50% year on year. And this, as the experts have said, the former border security official has said, this won't even make a dent in the numbers. That's the reality. It's 17 in, 1 out as far as I can see.
Yeah.
So it's simply not going to be enough. And we need a deterrent. That's what we believe in. We need a deportation bill. That's what we believe in, which means every illegal migrant who comes to this country will be deported, and every foreign national offender will be deported. That's what we want. That's what we should have. This government isn't strong enough to deliver on that.
But this is the problem, isn't it? Because there's no suggestion, one, from the government that we know how many people have so far been detained. They told us yesterday they've started detaining people. But the video they put out, and I'm going to show it to you again because we've played it a couple of times this morning. This is the migrant detention video that was put out by Keir Starmer last night. Have a look. Trying to make some kind of point here. Keir Starmer saying there, if you came here to this country on a small boat, you will face detention and return. I meant it when I said it. I mean, it means nothing really, because in fact Cooper won't tell us how many they've detained. Because if they were going to detain everybody, even now we know that the scheme doesn't allow for all of those people to be sent back.
Quite. I mean, you'll face return. I mean, that's, again, he's just playing with words. And the reality is people will know the situation. They'll know this is a very, very small part of the problem it's trying to solve. So it's simply not going to work. The incentive is still there. People want to come to the UK. And I quite understand why people do. We're a great country. But nevertheless, we cannot be a solution to everybody's problems in the world. And the reality, these numbers are far too high. We need very strong action taken. That should mean that nobody is allowed to come here illegally. Not 16 out of 17 people are allowed to come here, illegally. We should say that nobody can enter this country illegally. We've got to be able to protect our borders, secure our borders. The only way to do that is to have the kind of deterrent that we put in place, the Rwanda deterrent, the deportation measures we put in place in terms of our deportation bill, which Labour has clearly completely rejected, which means it's much more difficult if you come to this country to get citizenship. It's 10 years before you get leave to remain, all those things, or you can apply for that. It's 10 years. So all those things are very strong measures that we have put together that we would implement as part of a new government. And that are the strongest measures ever been proposed in terms of dealing with illegal migration.
Yeah. One of the problems, though, that we have in this country at the moment, Kevin, is that under the Tories there was an awful lot of legal migration, which was encouraged by Boris Johnson's regime, particularly because he believed in sort of global economies and all the rest of it. And an awful lot of the people who came here on work visas and on student visas came here sort of under false pretences, if you like, and have now stayed and are hanging around seeking asylum. And some of the hotels are actually putting them up. And, you know, the legal migration was a lot bigger in many ways and perhaps a lot more damaging, in terms of numbers than these people coming on the boats.
Yeah, we got that completely wrong. That's true. I mean, a lot of the legal migration you're talking about did come, about half of it in 2022 came as a result of Ukraine and Hong Kong, of course, which I don't think anybody is saying we did the wrong thing.
Yeah,
there.
but you can't really get away with that because there was loads more of it coming from India, from Bangladesh, from Nigeria. You know, an awful lot of non-EU immigration that came in because people were coming in to do business degrees that didn't exist, coming in to do jobs that really they didn't have for more than about 2 months, and then they went off and did something else. You know what I mean?
I'm not defending it at all, Mike. I said right at the start we made mistakes on it. The regime was far too lax. The point system was far too generous. As Kemi Badenoch has said, we'll have a a cap set by Parliament, which will be a very, very low number of net migration. That will be set by Parliament in future. There's no doubt about it. We got that wrong. We need to move away from the system we had previously and put in place a system that cuts those numbers of legal migrants into the UK to a much, much lower level. I completely support that. But also we deal with the illegal migration too. I mean, I think it's definitely my position, Mike, that we've been too soft in the past. We need to be far tougher in the future. That's why I think Kemi Badenoch's the right person to lead this country, because she's strong, courageous, she sticks to her guns, and I think that's exactly what we need.
OK, one final thought from you on Rushanara Ali, the latest Labour minister who's had to fall on a sword because apparently she's a bit of a hypocrite.
I think that's a fair way to put it. Sadly, she has said one thing and done something completely different. She's talked about exploitation of tenants. She's talked about, as the Labour government has, in terms of changing the law to prevent landlords doing exactly what Rushanara Ali has done. That's the reality behind this. So it's gross hypocrisy. Just her position was untenable. We called yesterday for her resignation. She's homelessness minister, and yet she's made 4 people homeless through this particular action in a very unfair way. And I've been in the property game for a long time, and I've rarely seen a landlord do what Rushanara Ali has done in this particular situation. And I say particularly in a situation where she's advocating a complete change in the law that would prevent landlords from doing this.
Yeah, exactly right. Kevin, good to talk to you. Thanks very much indeed. Kevin Hollinrake, Conservative Party Chairman, former Conservative MP, of course, as well. Let's talk to David Wooding now. Just a quick voice note first from Elaine. No? You haven't got Elaine? All right, never mind. Let's go to David Wooding then, who's definitely not Elaine. David, how are you doing?
Morning, Mike.
Good to see you. Trouble for Kevin Hollinrake there is that, you know, they can talk a good game about Kemi Badenoch and they can say this is what we'll do if we get back into power, but there's no question, is there, that the biggest problem for immigration in this country came in the last sort of 5 to 7 years under the Tory government, people coming here legally. You know, of course, the boat migrants are a problem, and you know we can talk about that in a minute. But the hundreds of thousands of people that came here to study and to work on in various different jobs on work visas has been far more damaging in a way to the increased population, isn't it?
Yes, I mean, in a way, Mike, the illegal migration, the cross-channel boats, is masking a bigger problem. One that successive governments have been getting away with for decades now. What they've been doing, and Tony Blair did it, instead of taking on the trade unions who were quite strong in those days, he just undercut their wages by importing cheap foreign labour. And all the economists have all said we need the cheap foreign labour to make economic growth. And these growth figures have all been fake because we've been paying out more in terms of benefits and costs related to mass immigration than we have in growth from the low-cost economy.
Yeah, exactly right. And that is the problem that we now face, that we've got, you know, no way really to get rid of many of the people who are stuck here. I think we've got what, 76,000 or something in a backlog of asylum seekers. Some of those people came on visas to work. Some of them came on visas to be students, but they've decided to overstay and now they're seeking asylum. You know, there's no chance that the government's going to kick any of those people out. And even now, this one in, one out ridiculously named policy is not going to be proving to do anything other than add more people in, is it?
Absolutely. As one of your callers said a moment ago, I wouldn't be surprised if they let people in without sending the people out.
Right.
It's crazy, and of course that plan, that agreement with France is littered with legal complications.
Yeah.
So we're not sure whether that one will even get off the ground. But yes, when I was in Parliament writing as a political journalist, I remember. I forgot how many times I wrote this story, that the number of migrants let in the last 2, 3, 4, 5 years is equivalent to a city the size of Birmingham, Glasgow, Liverpool, Manchester. You know, these stories have been going on for ages, and And of course, the population, it was always a steady 60 million. It's going to be 70 million before too long.
Yeah, absolutely right. Let's have a look at what Keir Starmer did an interview. It sort of disappeared without trace. This I didn't even know it had happened until Christian, my producer, sort of alerted me to it. He did an interview with Channel 5 News the other day. This is what he had to say about the one in, one out story.
The one in, one out, which I know, all these things come across the desk of the Prime Minister regularly, but today there's been talk of the fact that countries like France will have a veto. If you're under 18, you can be exempt. If you've got a current claim from the human rights course, you'd be exempt to that. Is that plan already scuppered before it's really begun?
No, not at all. And successive governments have tried to get a scheme like this off the ground. We've built good relations with France, and we've got the scheme up and running. The most important thing is that it's a deterrent, because it says to people, if you make that journey by boat, you may well be returned to France, back to where you started. That is hugely important. Obviously, it's a pilot at the moment. We need to see how it works. But I'm really pleased that we've struck this deal. I think it'll send a very strong message, and we can build on this as we go forward.
Is he just deluded? I mean, is he the only person in the world that thinks this is a good deal?
Well, there's two things there, Mike. One, they may well be returned. Well, they may be unlikely to be returned is a better phrase. And also, did you see that? Did you look carefully at that clip that you showed earlier on of the people who were going to be sent back?
Yeah.
They were all wearing life jackets.
Yeah.
Now, why is that? Are they going to put them back on the same dinghies to send them back or something?
This is
they're
the
not going
thing.
to send them on safe boats.
Yeah, well, this is the thing. They won't tell us, one, how many people have been detained. They won't tell us where they're being detained. They won't tell us what happens to them once they've been detained and how long they're likely to be detained for. And then if they do get sent back, which is unlikely, they don't tell us how that's going to happen either.
No, it's all shrouded with mystery. And I mean, the phrase has been used a couple of times that Keir Starmer is gaslighting us. And I think that's a good way of describing it.
It really is. And the problem for Keir Starmer, it seems to me, is that his backbenchers are already revolting against him in all sorts of different ways. They're not happy with the way he's running the government. And I said this to you last time you were in, I think. There's a lot of pressure on him to get this right. If he doesn't get this right, which I suspect he won't, he's out, isn't he?
Yeah, I mean, everything's riding on this, because it's now overtaken the NHS and the economy as the most important issue for the public.
Yeah.
Now that's if you just stop and think about that for a moment, Mike. I mean, for most people, wherever you live, you don't see. A lot of us don't see migrants. Depends where you live, you know. But the fact that it's impinging now on so many lives shows why it's being treated so seriously. Because one would have thought the economy and the NHS would be much bigger issues, but they're not now.
Yeah.
So this is something he has got to sort out. And to be honest, we haven't moved much, have we, in the past year at all? Where it's got worse, if anything.
Yeah.
He said he's going to smash the gangs, and yet they're still coming in. And he says this deterrent will work. People will get the message. Well, then we keep seeing these pictures of boats coming over. So it's clearly not, the message isn't getting through.
Yeah, it's absolutely horrendous, isn't it? Bad news all round. Great to see you, David. Thanks very much indeed. Journalist and political commentator there, talking to us about the state of play with this whole business of...
Pleasure. See you again. Cheers, bye.
Thanks a lot. Let's get a voice note from Elaine.
Hi, Talk Radio. I don't know if I've got this right because I've never done it before. But just to say, am I wrong? If you send 200-300 people to Rwanda, they then get processed, and then hopefully most of them get sent back to their own country, and then you can send another 200 or 300 people. Isn't that more than, you know, sending one back to France and actually gaining one back from France? Just doesn't make any sense to me anyway. Perhaps I'm wrong about the Rwanda scheme. Perhaps somebody could enlighten me.
Yeah.
Thanks, Elaine. Bye.
Elaine, yeah, you're right. You're right to an extent. Yes, we were able to send more people to Rwanda if they had continued to use that particular route to do it. But there was also a trick in that scenario, because there was an agreement with Rwanda that Rwanda would be able to sell us some migrants as well who wanted to come in to live in Britain. So it's all been completely cocked up by every single politician that's ever had anything to do with it. That's the problem. Dazza makes a good point about old what's her name? Ms. What's her name? Let's get it right. Rushanara Ali, the former member of Parliament for homelessness, says here, Mike, this home that Rushana Ali was renting out, was it only being rented out because we were funding her second parliamentary home in the same city of London? So £48,000 for free. Why isn't she living in that home she's renting out? Well, it's a good question. I don't know the answer to that, and we'll have to figure it out. Meanwhile, it is, of course, Gaff-Prone Friday. We haven't played very many, but here's one from Ian Collins.
And maybe we'll read this out at the end, a collation of your suggestions, what advice you have for the Chancellor and the Deputy Prime Minister. Oh, there you go. That's my phone going. Sorry about that.
Obviously, he's not somebody that knows him very well. Yeah, I'm on the radio. I'm on the air between 1 and 4 every day. Every single day. Why are you ringing me between 1 and 4? You know, it's like people that ring me sort of, you know, 6 o'clock in the morning, 7 o'clock in the morning. I'm working. I'm not answering the phone. 25 minutes past 9.
You think that you're, in a way, you're using the men, not them using you?
I mean, I always say, like, to the men, look, honestly, use me, rearrange my insides and all of that.
Yeah,
but
every time you say that phrase, I kind of recoil. Why?
Yeah.
What does that, what, I mean...
It's just like...
You're basically saying, I mean, you say to men, and you've said in videos, you know, strangle me, you know, slap me, spit on me.
God, you sound like you're about to start one of my videos.
Yeah, I don't think I'd be making the same money as you.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. It's 9:28. We're here for about another half an hour. This one from Carol in Shoreham by Sea. Happy birthday, Mike. I'm sure you'll have a great weekend once you can stop thinking about the total stupidity of these ignorant incompetents who are ruining our country. I'm a Leo too, and my birthday's on Monday. Well, happy birthday to you, Carol, as well. In fact, Cooper doesn't want to tell us how many illegals have been detained because the smuggling gangs have been laughing their heads off, says Gary in Northants. We are a banter country. Everyone is now taking the mickey out of us. Too many to mention. Let's get a voice note from Kelly.
Morning, Mike. It's Kelly from Essex, exasperated on a Friday. I'm going to be honest, when John Rentoul came on, I put on my hairdryer because my blood pressure goes up when I listen to him. Caught the end part, though, because unfortunately I turned my hairdryer off too quickly, and listen to him saying that Keir Starmer has accomplished what Rishi Sunak couldn't in getting President Macron to make an agreement. I wonder if that could be just because of his political persuasion, which just goes to show they don't give a damn about clearing anything, about keeping people in different countries. They don't care. It's all about the politics. I'll give you an award, Mike, for putting up with John Rentoul and for not having a nervous breakdown every time he comes on. But it's really not good for my health. Have a good weekend. Take care.
Kelly, thank you very much indeed. Sorry about that. Maybe that was called the hairdryer treatment. Put it on whenever John Rentoul comes on. Sarah's got something to say about it as well.
Morning, Mike. Sarah from West Sussex. Just out with the dog and listening to your conversation with John Rentoul. Goodness me, what on earth is he on about? Does he not get the fact that it's one in, one out? So the numbers stay the same, and you're right, actually. The numbers will go up because there's more and more boats coming. I mean, how can we explain it to these people that simply don't want to understand?
Yeah, it's true. I mean, some people just want to believe something that isn't right or true. It's incredible. Michelle says this, Mike, I'm not feeling charitable today either. We're in the middle of a national emergency and he's busy waffling on about this stupid one in, one out BS. She's talking about Keir Starmer. It's gaslighting. They think we're stupid. Never has a British government that I'm aware of put its people at risk like this. I think that's absolutely right. Anne from Kent says, Mike, I'm so desperate for someone to take control of this failing country. A dream of a tall, imposing figure emerging from the eerie mist, Clint Eastwood-like, growling, go ahead, punk, make my day. Will it be Starmer saving us from Ed Miliband and his net zero nonsense, or Starmer saving us working people from Herman, giving away our territory and then paying obscene sums to rent it back? All I can say is Bob Hope and no hope. I know, absolutely right. Coming up, Harry Wilkinson, Director of Policy at Net Zero Watch, is going to talk to us because we've got to find out from him why healthcare workers are actually being given literacy lessons on carbon emissions all the way through their working day. Absolute madness. This is a talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, coming up to 9:34 with you all the way through until 10 o'clock, of course. Great programme as usual, says Paula in Bexhill-on-Sea. We do agree with everything being said about the Labour government, but we've never heard or read anyone complimenting them. Maybe John Rentoul. Well, John Rentoul does compliment them incredibly. It's quite hard to believe that he does. Let's talk to Harry Wilkinson now, the Director of Policy at Net Zero Watch, because apart from anything else, one of the things that this government keeps screwing up is the green agenda. The fact that they're losing hundreds of thousands of jobs up in the north of Scotland, the fact that they're now insisting that we should all get heat pumps and drive around in electric cars. It now turns out that in healthcare, the Care Quality Commission is actually giving out 3.5-hour-long carbon literacy seminars during working hours. I mean, you're working in a job, right? Imagine, I mean, that's almost the entire length of my radio show, stroke TV show, 4 hours. You could be sitting here listening to a carbon literacy seminar. I can't imagine what that would be like. Harry, very good morning to you.
Good morning.
Carbon literacy, I'm not even quite sure what that means. What do you think it means?
It's very curious. I wish I could say I was surprised about this latest nonsense, but of course, we've seen it all before. It is just another example of that massive disconnect between, what the public priorities are and what our elite institutions think the priorities should be. I've actually got a friend who's a junior doctor now. They have to be known as resident doctors, and he tells me that they've been doing climate classes as part of their doctor training. This is extraordinary. This is nothing to do with actually what they should be focusing on, particularly in the healthcare sector, which we're constantly told doesn't have enough money and it needs more money to pay doctors more, to pay nurses more, and to buy more equipment. And yet they're somehow finding the funds to do climate change lessons for doctors and full care professionals. This is an utterly obscene waste of resources. And it just speaks to a governing class that is completely out of touch with the priorities, is completely wasteful in its spending. This net zero obsession has to end. It's draining resources in pretty much every public sector institution that you can think of. It seems to have these absurd climate, this, that, and the other.
Absolutely right. I mean, apparently, if you go to this seminar, you will get a carbon literacy certification, but you don't get it for doing anything. You just get it for turning up. According to an internal memo, a carbon literacy certification can help us all make a tangible difference. The workshops will help you understand the science and impacts of climate change, recognise which actions have the biggest carbon savings, find out how to independently outline and deliver at least 2 meaningful carbon reduction actions, keeping you accountable long after the workshop ends. I mean, it's like chasing some kind of imaginary wasp and never catching it, isn't it?
Well, I certainly hope they're treasuring their certificates, but I think their patients, people who are patients within the NHS, will not be very grateful if decisions are taken around their care that is focusing on climate change rather than what's best for their healthcare outcomes. Those two priorities may not always be aligned. And of course, the people directing these courses like to think that everything can be, magically aligned, and what's best for people's health will apparently be best for the climate as well. But the reality will be, in some situations, maybe those two agendas won't align, and doctors will be maybe putting the climate and climate change considerations before people's health. And that is just a shocking thing to be considering.
It really is. And I mean, the trouble is, what we know is that a lot of these public sector bodies are riddled with this kind of nonsense, aren't they? So I mean, you can imagine every single NHS trust will have this kind of thing going on. This happens to be the Care Commission, but every civil servant will be offered this kind of thing. Every single Department of State will have this kind of rubbish going on, and probably lots and lots of universities and schools as well.
Yeah, the green blob just grows and grows with every day. There seems to be no limiting its power. We've got Ed Miliband now as Energy Secretary, and he is giving an extra impetus to the race to net zero. But what's interesting is that there is now a growing political backlash. Yesterday we saw Unite the Union put out a video that was very critical of Ed Miliband, and they said, no ban without a plan. They were talking about jobs in the North Sea, and they were trying to protect their many workers who work in the North Sea in high-paid, high-skilled jobs, sometimes dangerous jobs, getting us the vital energy that we need. But, what I found unfortunate was that they were saying no ban without a plan. I don't want these people's jobs to be banned whatsoever. Even if Ed Miliband did have a plan, that doesn't mean he should be able to destroy livelihoods in the North see. But I mean, I think this is a first step in the right direction from the unions. They can see that people's jobs are being lost. The green jobs that are promised aren't materialising, and if they are, they're in smaller numbers in lower paid areas. So I think, you know, this is a sign, amongst others, that people are waking up to the disaster that is net zero, and will hopefully see a change eventually. But it's going to take a lot more frustration from people like you and me. It's going to take, you know, a big political coalition to actually realise that energy abundance is what we should be going for, not this kind of miserablest net zero approach. Which is all about trying to control everything that people consume. You know, a thriving society needs to be consuming more energy, and that can be green, but it has to be cheap and abundant and reliable. First of all, I think if Ed Miliband focused on those objectives, you know, he might actually find some improvements in terms of the climate, because you would have, you know, other areas like heating and transport decarbonised if electricity was cheaper. But we have the most expensive electricity in the world at the moment.
Thank you very much indeed. Harry Wilkinson there, Director of Policy at Net Zero Watch. It is incredible that we find ourselves in this kind of situation, isn't it? Absolutely crazy. One from Keith, who says, morning, Mike. As taxpayers' money is being used on a huge scale for illegal migrant HMOs and hotels, surely there is a list which should be published of who is receiving all this taxpayers' money that UK government seem happy to keep handing over. That's a good point. Bill in Cheshire says, immigrants in hotels. How many Labour MPs have offered, arranged or welcomed immigrant hotels and accommodation in their own constituencies? If none or very little, why? Surely they could be a beacon of inclusivity by welcoming all these doctors, nurses, engineers and scientists into their communities. Well, one of the things that's going to be happening this weekend is that there's going to be demonstrations going on up and down the country, which will all need to be policed, which will all need to be looked after by the Law and Order Brigade. There'll be Bournemouth, it'll be going on in London, it'll be going on in Epping, of course in Essex, it'll be going on in Norfolk, it'll be going on in Diss in Norfolk as well, it'll be going on in Leeds, it'll be going on in Newcastle. All sorts of parts of this country are going to have needs for the police to get to grips with various different protesters, whether they're peaceful or not. We're going to speak in a moment to Festus Akinbasoye, who's a former police and crime commissioner for Bedfordshire. But let's get a voice note first from Scott.
Morning, Mike. Just a quick one from Scott here in Birmingham. Just a quick question, mate. Day one of this one in, one out thing, 155 migrants crossed on 2 boats. 60 of those migrants we returned the life jackets for. Now, the other day, Yvette Cooper was on about boats with over 80. So is she only detaining those boats with over 80 on board, or is she detaining everybody? Because that video doesn't show 155 people, mate. Anyway, great show. Have a good weekend and happy birthday for tomorrow.
Scott, thank you very much indeed. Yeah, it's a very confusing picture, isn't it? We've seen this video, we can watch it now, of people being walked off the boat, walked into a room where they are apparently kind of being processed, if you like, fingerprinted probably, and then recorded, if you like, in some way, shape or form, a little wristband given to them. It's not clear. I mean, it looks like about 20 people. It doesn't look like many more than that, off possibly one boat. I mean, most of these boats are arriving with 60 people on them. So it's a small number of people that they've decided to show in this video. I'm not quite sure what it means. We'll try and get to the bottom of it through the course of the day. Let's talk now, though, to Festus Akinbasoye, who's a former police and crime commissioner for Bedfordshire. Festus, very good morning to you.
Very good morning to you, Mike.
Thanks for joining us. I mean, let me ask you first about these migrant hotel protests that are going to be going on probably for the whole summer up and down the country. It's a bit of a challenge for the police, isn't it? Because, you know, an awful lot of the protesters are families, a lot of women, a lot of children. It starts very peacefully, and then suddenly a few agent provocateurs turn up, whether they be from the left or the right, and then suddenly it all turns a bit more nasty. It's difficult for the police. I mean, what I've been told from many of the protesters who have gone peacefully is that there seems to be an awful lot more police than are necessary. But how do you judge all that?
It's not going to be an easy one for the police, because the reality is they're going to be damned if they do and damned if they don't. Right. And the reality as well is that this, unfortunately, will be a more frequent occurrence in this country now every year. Yeah. Because unfortunately, the government has totally lost control and lost grip of this illegal migrant issue. Right. The public discontent with it will continue to be ramped up. And we are going to keep seeing more and more deals, more and more money, and more rhetoric from the government, which do not seem to be having an impact. So I'm afraid the police are on a hide into nothing here, and there just aren't enough of them anyway.
Right.
But it's going to be a very difficult one moving forward.
Yeah. And but what sort of instructions would they be given in terms of if for example, and I'm thinking specifically, I don't know if you saw it, of last weekend's protest outside of the Britannia Hotel in Canary Wharf, where it was a lot of women basically dressed in pink, doing the hokey cokey, doing the conga, you know, being very peaceful. And there were police walking past them saying, "You've got to get out the road, get out of the road." And the women were sort of, some of whom were talking to the media and stuff, would go, "We're not moving, we're not moving." You can't really start roughing them up, can you?
No, I mean, and I think the safety of the protesters will always be the priority of the police, and it should be for sure. And making sure that protests are being lawful and groups are being kept apart so that there aren't any physical contact between either of them, because people have the right to protest and to make their views very clear, whether they support the government or they don't support the government. That should be a legal right that should be enforced by the police. But I would imagine in this instance, the main priority there was the safety of the individual, because they're sat on the road, and making sure that no one got hurt. That should be a priority.
Yeah. Absolutely right. Let me show you something which I'd like your opinion on. This is an exchange that took place in London Assembly this week between Susan Hall, who used to be the leader of the Conservative group, and a woman by the name of Kea Comer-Schwartz, who's Deputy Mayor for Policing and Crime. So she's basically one of those people that works for Sadiq Khan. The issue they were talking about is why so many London police stations have been shut down, basically, and how many sort of front desks, if you like, have been shut down. But if, like me, you are astonished by this, I will not be surprised. But check this out.
Deputy Mayor, why isn't the Mayor here?
Because I'm the Deputy Mayor for Police and Crime.
Yes, I know, we all know that. But since the Mayor is making this decision, why isn't he here?
The Mayor has sent me as his Deputy Mayor for Police and Crime.
I've heard your statement. So tell me, when was the Mayor actually told this was happening?
The Mayor has, as well as all of us, been involved in the conversations about the budget since September last year.
So he knew about the front counters closing last September, did he?
No, he knew about the need to look through the...
Yeah, no, we all know that. When was he told that the front counters were closing?
Like all of us, the Commissioner outlined proposals for tough choices in autumn last year.
Can you just tell me, when was he actually told, or was he asked, that they were actually closing? Was he consulted, or was he just told that the front counters were closing? Which is it?
He was consulted.
When?
We've had several meetings as we went through.
Okay, give me a rough idea. What month?
We saw the most developed proposal on this thing in July.
So basically, he's known about this for quite some time.
He's known about the proposal, the exact list of the proposal, similarly about the same time as we all knew.
I mean, I don't know quite what to make of that, other than to think to myself, if that's who's running the police in London, we got a real problem.
Mike, to the best of my knowledge, crime and lawlessness in London remains the #1 priority and concern of many Londoners and people who live in London.
Yeah.
Without question, because it's the most visible reality that they see. The Mayor of London is the Police and Crime Commissioner for London.
Yeah.
I used to be a police and crime commissioner, and I can tell you now for a fact, there is absolutely no way that such a significant decision could have been made, and I send my deputy to account for what has been done. Let's get into context. At a time when the Met has just announced that 1,700 police officers and staff jobs are going to be cut, which means about a 10% reduction in the forensics team, 11% reduction in the historic crimes team, a 7% cut to the police dogs team, and nearly half of all the operational front desk counters in London are going to be shut permanently. The Mayor of London, who is the Police and Crime Commissioner, fails to turn up to account and explain how or why this has been done. It absolutely is beyond belief. It is shocking, it is negligent, and it should not have been allowed to happen.
But also the way that she speaks would suggest that she's not really fit for a public role. I'm told that the money she gets is around about 155,000 quid for that job.
It's a lot of money for someone who has got no experience of policing, no understanding of policing, and absolutely completely out of her depths. I'm sorry. And it's not a personal attack on her. No. It's just that she's just completely out of her depth in this role. And so is the mayor. You know, he's lost control of the Met at a time when the biggest issue facing Londoners is crime and policing and lawlessness. It is abysmal.
It really is. And I mean, I'm hearing from various people in all parts of the world that, you know, now there are so many videos circulating of, you know, bike thefts going on, of watch thefts, of, you know, phones being stolen. We saw this week, just this week, in Oxford Street, they've actually put outside a bunch of shops, you know, mind the grab, actually warning people not to get their phones out on the street. You know, it's incredible. And some of these videos are circulating in places like, you know, Dubai, Qatar, the UAE, and Saudi Arabia, where awful lot of people would normally be coming to London for the summer, and they're not coming because they're looking at this stuff and going, we don't want to go there, it looks too dangerous. Mexico, I think, this week put out a warning saying to its residents, if you go to London, be very careful, it's a very dangerous city.
But, you know, according to Labour politicians, everything is fine. You know, they're putting record amount of money into policing, you know, but what they don't tell you is that we've got more people now leaving policing through resignations than are retiring. You know, and overall, the number of police officers in this country, those who are joining, has reduced by about 17%, all in a year. I wonder what has changed. And what we really do need now is a zero-tolerance approach to dealing with crime in London, and that the politicians get behind the police and make sure that the right level of funding is there. But we don't need this kind of amateur approach to leadership of policing in London. It is affecting morale, it is affecting public confidence, and it is not keeping London safe. That needs to change.
Yeah, it really does. But of course, coming up later this month, the Notting Hill Carnival returns, right? And this year it almost wasn't put on because it didn't have any money. The Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, found some money and gave them, I think, £1 million or £2 million to put it on. And you remember last year, it was absolutely horrendous. A couple of people were killed. There was mass riots in the streets, and people were getting crushed, and all sorts of things, horrible things going on. People were using the streets as toilets and all the rest of it. I mean, they've got to do something about that, haven't they?
I mean, I would not want to live in that part of London at this, you know, during the time of the Carnival, because of the mayhem that is created for local residents. And I wonder if those residents have been consulted as to how they think this should continue. But you are right. Last year was dreadful. It was tragic in the sense that 2 people were killed. One was a mother in front of her own child. You know, and for some bizarre reason, it is horrendous. And can anyone guarantee that something that tragic will not happen again this year? I don't think so. And something needs to be done to make the Carnival much safer and much more enjoyable for everyone who wants to go there. But personally, I would think twice about going to the Carnival, letting my children go to the Carnival, even though it's a great celebration, but it has changed beyond what it was, you know, 20, 30, 40 years ago. Yeah, it's a lot more dangerous now. Yeah, absolutely right. Festus, great to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed. Festus Akin Bisoyi there, former Police and Crime Commissioner for Bedfordshire. Murders at the Notting Hill Carnival have happened over the last several years. They happen every single year. There'll probably be murders this year. And yet nobody seems to stop the thing from going ahead. People have said for many times, and I've been one of them, you know, move it out of Notting Hill. Put it into Hyde Park, make it into a sort of gated event. You don't have to charge people, but you could have a security arch that people go through to get in there so that you don't have this ridiculous level of crime going on. It's absolutely shocking. Let's get a voice note from Mark.
Morning, Mike. It's Mark in Lancashire. There's a reason why Flip-Flop Starmer has reverted to calling the illegal migrants just that, illegal, rather than irregular, and that's because they're facing legal challenges, aren't they? just like the Tories were with Rwanda, the human rights lawyers will be all over this now, taking it right to the European Court of Human Rights, just like they were with the Tories. And stupid Starmer and his bunch have realised that they were playing into the lawyers' hands by not calling them illegal themselves. Oh, they're not illegal, they're irregular. Oh, we've got legal challenges. Oh, no, they're illegal now. What an idiot. We see this time and time again. They tie themselves in knots with their own stupidity. It's absolutely ridiculous.
It is absolutely ridiculous. I mean, that's probably a great epitaph for this government. Just say it. It's absolutely ridiculous. Get some T-shirts made. It's absolutely ridiculous. Some scarves, some banners. It's absolutely ridiculous. Because it is absolutely bloody ridiculous. Can you imagine if there was a new series of Faulty Towers, says Robert in Hitchin? It would likely be a migrant hotel and be very funny. Oh, wait, no, it wouldn't. This situation is so depressing, it makes me feel totally helpless. I know. But listen, keep the faith. Listen to this show. Morning Glory will keep you at least entertained while you are depressed and wondering where it's all going to end. It's 9:55.
Some breaking news this morning revealed that under the Terrorist Act, 242 people were arrested in the year to June of this year.
As something you can indulge in as to all the people who aren't going to prison because, well, there's no prison spaces.
So this is a talk exclusive we've been looking at.
I said, you take these cuffs off me and speak to me like a human being rather than a common criminal.
You're just left wondering, does these people who lead us actually hate Britain? Yeah. Do they not love our country and everything that we've stood for?
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. We're nearly finished. It's about 2 minutes to go. Alex Phillips is here. Very good morning to you, Alex. Nice to see you. I've got a little video to play you just before we go. This is another one that's gone out by the Home Office, right? And don't forget, you can't put a video out now from the government unless you put some really cool music on it and make it look really, really like, you know, gnarly.
What's it going to be?
I'm not sure. Something to do with the deportation one in, one out scenario. Have a look. 4 blokes getting out of a van carrying a blue plastic bag. They've been in a van. So they've got a van as part of the...
Yeah, they're probably just going to go and deliver, like, you know, sort of halal ice creams or something.
Yeah.
That was probably sell drugs.
I mean, is it a van or is it a minibus? I mean, who knows? It's just...
Do you remember the
rubbish,
Ferrari when Theresa May had that advertising van going around Westminster saying, if you're illegal, we're going to come find you?
Absolutely.
And I was like, oh, you can't do that. That's so menacing,
well,
you
there used
racist.
to be, you know, it used to be that they were, I think it was not far from here. There's a sort of a lockup. Where they used to park all those vans, and they were like the immigration vans, and you know they did have all sorts of logos on them and things, you know, like